Good evening, race fans. Welcome back once again to the Simple Racing Broadcast channel, and we are back tonight with the third round of the MC Motorsport's MCV8 series. This is season 1, and this is the silver split from beautiful Long Beach, the south coast of Los Angeles. And we are back again to bring all of the racing action to you from this incredibly fast, incredibly tricky street circuit. Once again, my name is Jared Cole. It's a pleasure to be back behind the mic with you, and tonight a very special guest for the first time in what must be close to 9 months, I'm sure. Nick Patasso, welcome back to the comms booth, my friend.
Yes, good evening, race fans at MC Motorsport. It's great to be back here in the live booth broadcast here for the V8 Supercars series for season 1. For the first time, they will be seeing the 2023 and modelled V8 Supercars Championship that was first brought into the world of the Australian Touring Cars Championship with the Chevrolet Camaro and the Ford Mustang, the Gen 3 of the V8 Supercars, and now finally we get to see it in the iRacing world. For me, it is a spectacular thing to see how technology evolves, how ray tracing and car scanning is all about here in the iRacing world. I come from a completely different side of sim racing, so for me this is going to be all brand new, and this is all fantastic to see. I enjoyed my time in calling the first season of the GT3 Championship, but now it's going to be a pleasure to call the silver split here in its first season for the MC Motorsport V8 Supercars Championship. And yeah, great to be back with you, Jared. And it's great to be here at Long Beach, one of my favourite tracks. It's a shame that I don't get to race it on my platform, but tell us all about what we've got here on offer for our silver drivers tonight.
I got to get you over to the dark side yet, Nick. We'll get you on iRacing one day. Mate, Long Beach, you're absolutely right, is a fantastic track. It loops in and around the Long Beach Convention and Entertainment Centre, the aquarium down at the infamous roundabout with that gorgeous fountain that we don't spend much time looking at because we spend most of our time just holding our breath to see if anyone's actually going to make it out the other side of it alive. It is a very, very tight and technical track. Being a street circuit, the surface is absolutely not what supercars are made for. They prefer the smooth asphalt of a racetrack to the potholed and manholed surface of a street circuit any day of the week. But that's what makes them so fun when you do get to a street circuit. The conditions here tonight in the silver split certainly favouring the drivers compared to the gold split earlier this week. Beautiful weather, 20 degrees, a little bit of humidity, just a few clouds around. We're not seeing any rain tonight. The track temperature, 24 degrees, so expect the tyre life to be significantly better than what we've seen in the first 2 rounds of this championship. The race format, of course, tonight following the same as our gold split, so 15 minutes of open qualifying, a 75-kilometre first race, which is 24 laps here at Long Beach, and then 48 laps in race 2 to make 150 Ks for that second race. A reverse top 10 grid, just to make sure the winners from race 1 don't find it too easy to get back up the top in race 2. And Nick, mate, it's changed a little since your GT3 calls, but all in all, the battle's still very, very fierce here with the MC Motorsport's cohort of drivers. We've seen great battles already so far in the championship, and let me take you through for a moment, if I can, just where we're sitting right now, because everything has changed just a little after the first couple of rounds. So Chris Pellat still out in front, but only just 1 point over Hayden Cupid. This is, of course, with the drop round applied from rounds 1 and 2. Scott Stevens in P3 in the HR Jinx Shifters entry. Ryan Palmer from ADHD hanging on to P4 at the moment ahead of Pat Trappett, who has actually just been moved. So the points will have to reshuffle a little bit once iRacing catches up with some of the moves between the splits. We've also got Luke Speck and Tom Williams there with Jake Robillard. You may remember him from the GT3 days. Michael Brennan has joined us and has made a fantastic showing in his first round as well. Aaron James in P10, and then a litany of other names. A couple of changes in this particular week. We had a bit of a reset, I suppose, of the splits. Obviously, the splits set earlier in the season through our pre-qualifying rounds, but Nathan Bowman, Josh Harris, Mitch Curry and Dylan Thomas all moving into the silver split from the gold split. So Pat Trappett moving up to gold and 4 drivers moving down just to rebalance the field a little bit. Really interested to see how those drivers go tonight in the silver split and just see how close the competition is for them or whether they're going to walk away with it. all in all, though, not a lot to separate, honestly, the gold and silver splits. We've had some fantastic driving right throughout, and tonight I'm sure will be absolutely no different, Nick.
Absolutely, it's a great format. The admin team have put in all the hard work to getting this V8 season 1 underway. Obviously, with the announcement of the V8 Supercars, of the Chef Camaro, and the Ford Mustang coming into the iRacing world, it was all a bit of scrambles to get everything underway and get everything to be set out perfectly. So I'd like to thank all Mitch's team to getting that all sorted out, as well as yourself, Jared, in the commentary booth and with the live streaming. But it's also great to see the advantages and disadvantages as well when it comes to that live ladder with the silver and the gold championship. So you have your dominant, strong drivers from each division, and then they start to work their way up towards from silver to gold and then gold to silver. So it kind of adds a little bit of uniqueness that feels like a live ladder championship, that you've got all registered drivers, over 50 registered drivers. I can imagine, obviously, the registration for supercar racing would be massive since the inauguration of these cars coming into the game. But it's great to see that the amount of people on board with this championship, and to have this format fluctuating between the top and the bottom, the top split and the bottom split. But we can't really consider it that, because if you're saying that everything is competitive, if silver is competitive as gold, it is incredible to see, because that just excites me as a fan, as a commentator, to see what this series is all about.
Nick, mate, I cannot wait for you to see this get underway tonight, honestly. It's been some of the best racing I reckon I've seen from the MC Motorsport crowd as we see the cars coming out for the start of the open qualifying session. It's been some of the best racing I've seen from the MC Motorsport group since, I reckon, the Toyota 86 season, where we opened up, I will never forget it, the first race of the Toyota 86 season. We had first and second separated by, I think from memory, about 4/100ths of a second or something like that. It was phenomenal. This has been all of that and then some. Honestly, the Gen3 Supercars, we've been waiting for so long for these to make it to iRacing. They're finally here, and they absolutely do not disappoint. So look forward to an absolutely fantastic evening of racing. We've got a little bit of love for you out there in the chat tonight, Nick. Just a big shout out from the man himself, Mitch Curry, MC Motorsport, and you might know a bloke by the name of DJ. He's a little excited to see you. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he's a little excited to see you here. So
yes,
some fans already, mate.
My good old pal, my great pal. He's one of the co-owners of our league series in the Gran Turismo 7 world of the Track Stars Racing Series. It's great to see him jumping on board. I know he's one of the drivers here in the silver split, but unfortunately he's not racing tonight. But he did have from what I remember, he did have a good run last time out at Winton Raceways, which is just a shame that he's not able to race this weekend, because he's actually away over in New Zealand with his partner.
Excuses.
A nice little.
Honestly,
I know. It's like you have to commit to racing. That's what I always do. It's just like, if you've got a partner, if you've got family things, sorry, racing always comes first. So at least that's what it was during the pandemic era. It's that when it comes to that, it's all about racing. But now we're here, we're live at Long Beach, and it's great to see some cars starting to get their laps in for qualifying as we are underway. We're starting to see some names pop up at the top of the timing sheet. Obviously, no surprises in the 89 of Mitch Curry for MC Motorsport, as we have
that's not what he would have wanted.
With the 311
You know what? Get it,
Greg Patrick, unfortunately.
Get it out of the way. Get it out of the way here, and we will hope that he doesn't do the same in the race. This is the time to do it. Open qualifying, get all the nerves out of the way, get used to the track, and don't do it in the race, please.
No, exactly. Well, that's the exact thing, because Long Beach itself, it's a very fast-flowing circuit. I remember I do watch a lot of the Long Beach racing in the IndyCar series. Obviously, this was a very well-renowned track in the late 70s when it came to the early Formula 5000s, before we actually saw some Formula 1 racing that raced along this track in the late 70s, early 80s, until it actually did not become a thing anymore. Obviously, there was no more government agreements to actually keep the track on the Formula 1 calendar, which is a shame, actually, because I can imagine with the modern era of Formula 1, the cars will be absolutely flying here. I would definitely prefer a track like this, then what I would say probably like the Las Vegas Grand Prix, that would be something spectacular, especially coming through this turns 2 and 3 through the roundabout. It's such a nice flowing track. You can just see the cars bouncing all over the curbs there, just trying to get right up against the barriers there. Open the steering wheel up as we have Josh Harris on board in the Chevrolet Camaro for the ADHD Pertec inspired livery from Stone Brothers Racing.
Let's not dig into that too much. I'm sure he's told you all about that, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. Him and Ryan have definitely told me about what their cars look like, and I have a couple of Ford fans that are very upset with those two. So I can imagine.
I think that's the idea, though.
Hopefully they're not watching tonight.
Well, Josh Harris is definitely watching and saying a big hello to you as well, Nick. Definitely a fan club here at MC Motorsport. It's wonderful to have you back. Big save from Josh. He's caught that one well. And that's not going to help him with his time this lap, but a hell of a lot better than having to head back to the pits and start all over again. Let's give you a good look.
That's what I say. Don't text and drive at the same time, Josh. That's what happens.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's just not on. This is the Pertec livery we're referring to, of course, and he's even gone as far as to put the Ford banner across the back windscreen as well, which is just that extra commitment to detail that I think is really what ADHD is renowned for. Let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But the 989 so far doing a good job, sitting in 9th place at the moment. We are early stages into the qualifying session. So what do you think? What is it all about here, Josh? I'm guessing, Jared, apologies there. That when it comes to the actual qualifying itself, is it just running a lot of laps just to get the tyre temperatures up with these cars? Do you actually have to, push for every single lap, or do you need to have a bit of a break, cool the car down, put in some extra fresh rubber, and then go for a fast lap at the end? Or what is the motivation for the drivers here tonight?
Something we're definitely discovering about the Gen3 Supercars is that they do not respond well to those tyres getting overheated. They very, very quickly get out of the usable range of temperature, and it takes a long time to bring them back down. So really important to look after the tyres. You will also tend to get the best times out of these tyres when they're very green. We're talking, first lap or two are going to be your best laps. From there on, they just start to fade. So it's really key, particularly with an open qualifying session, as we do run here at MC Motorsport. You've got to really pick your time to go out of the pits. You can't just go out when everyone else does, because you find yourself caught in traffic. If you're behind a slower car, you're not only not going to set the best time you can straight out of the gate, but you're actually going to rip through the tyres' peak period for grip just by getting stuck in traffic. So, yeah, it's a tough one to pick. But all in all, these guys tend to do a pretty reasonable job of actually getting down some decent lap times, despite it being open qualifying. And there's not that many leagues out there that do actually do open qualifying. A lot of them prefer to stick to solo laps. And look, each to their own. I definitely prefer the open approach, though.
Yeah, exactly. With an open qualifying, you get to actually follow cars along the track. Obviously, whether you're coming in as a driver that has a lot of track knowledge of Long Beach, or you are a rookie, or you are someone that doesn't really get to spend a lot of time on this track, it's always good to follow someone that you can drive on their wheel tracks. So you can actually learn and gain advantages from what the driver ahead is doing. So it's all that minor percentage on the throttle, how late they can go on the brakes, how wide they can open up corners. Because you've got to think about Long Beach. It gets narrow, but then it really opens the corner. Then the corner opens up all of a sudden. So that's what we love about Long Beach, or me personally. That it's like a wide track, but at the same time, you don't want to exploit yourself to the point where you feel like you can go hard on the throttle, and then all of a sudden there's the barrier right there on your inside. So it does bring out its motivation to actually drive around this track and really exploit the limits that you can. It's all about getting, and also as well, that last critical corner, the hairpin that leads onto this long pit straight down for turn 1. These cars are definitely going to be exceeding about 260 kilometers per hour as they get down towards turn 1. But some really good laps being put in with only, we've got like at least about 6 minutes of qualifying to run.
Yeah, not long left in it.
That's great. And it's great to see it's great to see everyone, like I was saying, that all the cars just following each other, just trying to get their advantages, trying to see if they can find the optimal racing line, that when they get to the qualifying, really exploit the track limits. So it's really great to see some really fast competitive laps there. We're seeing the fastest lap already being set by Mitch Curry on a 1:21.788, and then you look at down the bottom of the field, we're looking at around about a 1:24.917 set by Scott Stevens. So even though the gap looks big, it is still pretty close. As I see a car go down the escape road down the back there, looked like he missed his braking point by a fair margin there. So
not the first time we've seen that there. Yeah, we did see that in the Gold Split on Monday night as well. A fantastic save from, I think it might have been Ollie Stevens, as a vague memory. Yeah, it made the call very, very late that he wasn't going to make it through the corner, but an amazing little bit of work to not hit the wall, instead going down the escape road, flicking it back around and back on track. So these drivers really tuned into the cars and what they're actually capable of here. One of the other things you touched on there, Nick, we saw it in the gold qualifying and gold racing on Monday night. It is a wide track, but there's so few passing opportunities here, and you've really got to absolutely commit to them if you're going to make them stick. On top of that, this track so very quickly gets covered in marbles, rubber debris and gravel and all the little bits getting kicked off these cars, that by the time you get to about 10 laps in, it's very, very hard to take anything other than the same racing line through each corner. So these guys are going to have to really think about how they set themselves up for each opportunity to pass. You're going to have to be thinking 3 or 4 corners ahead as to whether now is the best time or whether you just stay on someone's tail and make sure you're well set up for the right opportunity to pass. It's a very, very tough track. Don't let it fool you. It doesn't look technical as you watch these cars make it their way around, but it is a very, very difficult track, as we see Tom Williams, the Everything Simulated entry, making his way around on a flying lap as well. So plenty to watch for tonight. We've got just under 4 minutes of qualifying left to go. And so far, Mitch Curry's still out in front ahead of Luke Speck. Not a lot to separate them, though. And really, it's probably the best place to be at Long Beach. You either want to be at the very front of the grid or at the very, very back of the grid as they make their way through Turn 1 and that fountain. Because anywhere in the middle, you're likely to get sandwiched.
Yeah, and with 24 supercars on the grid tonight here in the Silver Split, it's going to be very decisive. As that mid pack is going to be absolutely crazy. It's all about just trying to get the launch that you can possibly get with the supercar. Obviously, I keen to see how these cars launch off the track, as that is not the best line to take through on the last corner. As he drifts, as he puts a bit of a showboat there to finish off his lap there. Unfortunately, he just did not take the right line through the last corner, unfortunately, but because it's very, very, very narrow line as well. But yeah, it was great to see. It's going to be interesting to see how these cars launch off the line, see if they're actually a little bit heavy and they're actually struggle to get the cars launched off, because we could be seeing a lot of carnage going in towards turns 1 and turns 2 and 3 through that first sector alone. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that mid-pack. But then also as well, like you said, the drivers starting at the rear of the field are going to get a really good bird's eye of what could be potential carnage in that opening couple of laps.
100%. And look, I can tell you from experience and from having watched these guys over the first couple of rounds as well, these cars are every bit as hard to launch as the real deal. They are massively overpowered, they are massively undertired, and finding the balance on that clutch it's a work of art. And if you can nail that, you can quite easily pick up 3, 4, 5 positions off the start line just from a good launch in these cars. It's so important to get it right. And it's something that very few people actually have nailed so far, because they are so hard to drive.
That's very unique there in a way. Get that launch, and then you can gain yourself 6 positions. That's incredible. And especially with Long Beach, the opening part of the racetrack is very wide. You can potentially fit 3 to 4 cars wide going in towards the fountain. It's going to be really exciting, so I can't wait to see what the start is like. But we are approaching the end of qualifying, just over a minute to go, as we have our top 5 set by Hayden Cubic in the Ford Mustang Sideways Esports with a 121.739. And I'll tell you what, Jared, the qualifying is very close, 739 versus 21.788 set in the Camaro by Mitch Curry. And then the Englishman in Luke Speck, a 121.892. And then the first man of the 22s, Seth Stevens, in a 122.101. It's very
a close one. Absolutely. Like you have to look back to P12 The top 12 separated by a second here. It's a very, very close set of qualifying times. It's going to be a very competitive first race. It will be interesting to see just how that order looks, though, once we get through the first two turns, because if it's anything like the Monday night race, there's going to be some changes pretty early on, and it's not going to be through anyone's fault other than just getting squeezed against walls. So we'll keep a close eye on it. The last few seconds of qualifying now, as we head back up to the blimp and wait for the results to come through. We're heading into race number 1 here tonight. Of course, 24 laps, 75 kilometres around Long Beach. It goes fast, though. And the grid for tonight has been set. Hayden Cupid and Mitch Curry will be on the front row ahead of Luke Speck and Seth Stevens, Josh Harris and Ron Long on the third row. Then Adrian Gresh, Tom Williams, Greg Patrick and Martin Hallinan rounding out the top 10. Aaron James and Dylan Thomas just missing out this time around. Daniel Harrod and Scott Stevens in 13th and 14th. Simon Caplet starts alongside Matt Bakir from Alpine Pro Racing. Darren Lofton and Jake Robiart a little further back ahead of Chayton Byron and Jamie Taylor rounding out the 20. Jared Williams and Jimmy Peacock 21st and 22nd. Martin Lipsky and Nathan Bowman further back. That is your grid of 24 for this evening's first race. And look, we had 18 in the gold split on Monday night, if memory serves. Having that extra 6 cars doesn't sound like much, but particularly through the fountain for the first time, I reckon it's going to prove pretty challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of cluster going into that first sector here at Long Beach as we get ourselves ready, just waiting on a couple of drivers to set themselves up for race 1 here for round 3 of the Supercars Championship presented by MC Motorsport, as we looks to have most of our drivers ready to go. They're all parked up. Qualifying is done, and then the race marshal says it's time to get on track, boys, because we are ready to go, and we are about to go live here. What is going to be an exciting round here at MC Motorsport. The green flag flies, and we are underway here for MC Motorsport.
Josh Harris, we were talking about the start. Have a look at this. Starts back in 4th. Back on the 3rd row and already challenging for 2nd. We were talking about the start earlier and how important it is to get away off the line cleanly. This is what it delivers when that happens. Huge start for Josh Harris. Let's see if he can actually keep it going here as we make our way through. Big moment. That's Hayden Cupid sideways. He is backwards into the fountain, and it is a long wait to get going again there. So far, everyone through cleanly otherwise, and you can see the nose-to-tail traffic on the way through the fountain every single time.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to be caught up in the mid-pack, because then you got drivers like Mitch Curry, who's in the lead of the race, who actually got the good launch and got the lead at the entry of turn 1, has actually stretched his margin by quite a fair bit on this opening lap there. So that's why he's able just to pull away from the rest of the field there. He's got 3.1 over Josh Harris, who did make contact with Hayden Cupid, obviously going into the chicane, going into the fountain. Very unlucky there for Josh Harris and Hayden Cupid to be making contact on the opening lap, but obviously that will be dealt with in the steward's room very soon. But it is
we've had an issue with Martin Hallinan and Daniel Harrod have crashed there as well. Let's go back and take a quick look and see if we can catch what's happened. So coming out of that turn, this is Martin Hallinan that we're watching here. Daniel Harrod, I believe, just behind him at this point. Big moment into the wall. Ooh. See that all the time off those tyres, but in recovering, how has he come together with Daniel? Just a bit further down the road, perhaps, as we look to speed it up just a touch. And yeah, just
ouch!
Has managed to catch
contacts.
Him. I think Daniel's actually he's lit the tyres up or something, hasn't he?
It just looks very reminiscent of of the Carlos Sainz Sergio Perez crash that we saw in the Baku Grand Prix in Azerbaijan last year. So just obviously rubs along the wall there, and I feel like there's a little bit of side contact, bit of side draft, and just like unfortunately, just the physics just took over him, and the car just turned into the wall. So very unlucky there for the Camaro driver to be getting a loss of damage on his car. So that's been a long time in the pit lane to try and repair the car. So we've got the cars filing in on lap 2 of 24 for heat 1 of the MC Motorsport Supercar Series. Mitch Curry ahead of Josh Harris in P2, and then we have Luke Speck and Adrian Grinch in 3rd and 4th. Ronald Long, Seth Stevens, Greg Patrick is up into P7 with Tom Williams. Scott Stevens has actually come down from the back of the grid, making his way up into 9th place. So a great start from the HDR Jinx Shifter Racing Camaro, and then we have Aaron James rounding up the top 10. So now it looks to be a little bit calmer now. Obviously, as we are getting into the latest stages of the race, cars starting to throw them on the inside line. It does look tempting though, Jared. Obviously, when you throw the cars,
lucky there.
Lighting up the rear wheels. Has he done that? It's
just
Greg
managed
Patrick
to avoid Greg Patrick.
Yeah, just lighting up the wheels there to Greg Patrick there in the full send motorsport. Definitely going full send on the Camaro, just trying to get a very good exit on the throughout turns 9, 10, and 11. But really even start there, as I was just saying, just these next few laps is just about finding that rhythm, just settle in, find a pattern that works, and then try and run your race for the rest of this heat. But this is MC Motorsport. Everyone's going to be fighting for positions. Everyone's going to be scrambling for championship orders and championship placings, and putting in some really nice moves here, like we're seeing around the outside. Ooh, does he get it done? Can he keep the inside line through the fountain? He doesn't. So actually very nice racing there by the 51.
Scott Stevens making a move, and it's something we've seen from him already this season. Give him an inch and he will absolutely take a mile, and it's going to be very, very hard for Williams to hang on to the back of him here if he gets a bit of run on. The thing is, Long Beach, a little bit easier. You don't have quite as many opportunities for people to get away. Big puff of smoke there. Oh, who's into the wall there?
Seth Stevens.
Seth Stevens has crashed.
I don't want to sound investigated, but are they actually siblings, Seth Stevens and Scott Stevens?
We have spoken about them joining a race team together, the Stevens and Stevens race team, just to really mess with us up here in the booth. Just a big lock-up and straight into the wall. That's caused some huge damage to that car, and he's going to have to limp it back to the pits. The other thing to call out, just because it probably does look a little bit different to the viewers at home. Oh God, that front right wheel. Because we are doing this as a delayed broadcast, of course, the suspension physics are not modelled quite as cleanly as they are in a live session. So I can assure you that these guys are not running rock hard suspension. It's just the nature of a street circuit on a replay file. So if you're wondering why these cars are bouncing around so much and why these guys are running such a hard suspension setup, I promise you it's not that. We see him dragging the front corner, sparks flying. He's done well to get back.
Yeah, and he's done the right thing. He's actually getting away. He's getting out of the way from all the other drivers. So that's a really class-man act there by Seth Stevens. Very unfortunate with that massive lock-up that he had as he pulls into the pit lane in the background. And it's going to be a very long repair there. So a bit of a shame, though, because he started right up inside that top 10, got a good start, and just unfortunately just a lock break, and that was the end of it, unfortunately. Obviously, you're coming in from a high speed at the exit of turn 6. But at the same time, that once you lock that brake, it's with these cars that you see in the real world, it is very hard to pick up, and it's very hard to get it back, get that tyre back into full rotation.
Here comes Scott Stevens again battling with Williams. So these two going at it for, another lap and a half since we last looked at them. Greg Patrick's still with them as well. So a couple little battle packs starting to form here. Long Beach seemed to do that to us a fair bit. Williams, a big moment there, manages to get it back under control, but it's going to cost him the position to Patrick if he's not careful. One of the things we saw in the split on Monday night was that Long Beach seems to really be a bit of a rubber bandy track. You know, the drivers will all start to get a bit spaced out, and you'll have a second or two between each driver, and then all of a sudden you'll get a battle pack of 4 or 5 cars as Greg Patrick gets forced all the way to the wall.
They literally went side by side from turns 9 all the way up to the hairpin, and now they've just managed to give themselves a lot more room there, and now it is actually Greg Patrick that's taken the position away from Tom Williams. So my goodness, that was some fantastic car control and some fantastic side-by-side racing from those two. That was incredible to watch between them.
It's always good to see that level of respect between the drivers here at MC. You know, no one's doing anything silly. They're giving each other just enough room, and in this case, just enough room to get around the corner together. You know, they're actually racing the way that we expect. So always good to see, and I don't think we will have seen the last of this little battle just yet. As they try to hang on to the back of Scott Stevens. He's starting to pull away, opening up just a little bit of space here. Aaron James dropping off the back now. And keep an eye on Matt Bakir sneak up behind. Jake Robiard as well has been slowly but surely reeling in Dylan Thomas. A big moment there from Chayton Byron. He ends up down the escape road, just misses the tyre wall. very, very lucky to not actually smack the front end of that Mustang into the wall there, and so he's going to have to get going once he's clear of traffic. That's taken him a long way down the field. Meanwhile, Dylan Thomas, Fishing Motorsport's really featuring heavily in the gold split, with about, I think we had 6 or 7 entries on Monday night from Fishing Motorsport. Tonight, Dylan Thomas finds himself a little bit alone here in the silver split, but carrying the Fishy label, and it's all on his shoulders, no pressure.
Nah, no pressure indeed, but he's still holding on very nicely inside or just outside the top 10, so he's not too far away. He's in the Ford Mustang of the Fishing Motorsport, but I just want to go back to
as we see a big
cluster of cars.
Who's that? That's Martin Lipsky has gone around in the hairpin, and I wonder if there was any contact that did that, but Hayden Cupid getting caught up in it, Jared Williams as well. Martin Hallinan just escaped it by the look of things.
It's all going from bad to worse, unfortunately, for Hayden Cupid, because the man that started on the front row is all the way down in 20th place now, and
19 places, 20 places down.
This is not what he expected from the third round in racing in the Supercars Championship. So he's got a lot of work to do in the next round in the second race, which is a little bit of a longer race, a reverse top 10 grid order. I believe that's correct.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So we see a nice little battle pack forming here. No pressure, mate. Just straight back into it. Keep an eye on Cupid, though. He is making some moves back there, looking to pass Lipsky now, so you'll see him move up in just a moment. So we'll keep an eye on his progress back through the pack. Meanwhile, the battle here for 5th is pretty much where it is. Ronald Long has had a nice little bit of time out in front, but so far hasn't really had much in the way of challenges. That's about to change, although we see it looks like a drive-through penalty there for Josh Harris, unsurprisingly for that early contact with Hayden Cupid. So he's serving his drive-through right now, which has changed the makeup of the field just a little. I'm not quite sure what happened just then to Scott Stevens, why he's gone into the pit.
Yeah, it looks like I've just seen that pop up in my timer screens right now. It looks like he's just coming to the pit lane. I'm not so sure. That looks to be maybe potential retirement for Scott Stevens for HJR Jenks Shifters.
That would be unfortunate.
Looks a bit of a retirement, unfortunately. And obviously his race going from bad to worse, not getting the best qualifying. He was working his way up towards the front inside that top 10, putting in some very nice moves as well. But yeah, it just looks like he's just dropped down. It looks like the car's done. The team's called him in and says, let's regroup, regather, and let's refocus. Let's focus on the next one. So very unfortunate for the 51 and Scott Stevens to be down and out and retired from the first heat. Was putting on some very spectacular moves in those early stages. And we have a move here from Nathan Bowman. Let's talk about Nathan Bowman. Started last place. He's already up into 12th at the moment. The plain white Ford Mustang no sponsors, nothing on the car, and it's just making it fly like an absolute rocket ship. So the white Mustang doing a really nice job to fly through the field. He's almost on the fringes of the top 10 as we look to try and see if we can get how close he can get towards the front man the man in front of him, Jamie Taylor from Danger Zone Motorsport. We'll be keeping an eye on that time delta between them, but it's impressive to see. He's one of the biggest achievers so far, 12 positions in the first few laps here. Well, we're on lap 8 of 24, so 12 positions in 8 laps. That's a pretty solid achievement in this machinery.
And it's not an easy track to pass on. We spoke about this earlier. There's only a couple of opportunities where you can try and force a pass in the absence of a mistake from the driver in front. Really, the end of that front straight into turn 1, it's a dangerous one, but it's one of the few opportunities. And then, of course, the end of the back straight, which we're just about to come to here with Greg Patrick and Tom Williams. We'll see if Tom Williams puts the move on. Patrick stays defensive. Williams goes to the outside. He's going to try and put a little bit of an over-under move here, but you just don't have the grip coming out, and you certainly don't have the line into these last couple of corners before the hairpin to be able to really push through. You've got to get it done at that first corner, or you find yourself having to think about the end of the front straight. As we see another car coming into the pits there, it looks like Ronald Long on his way into pit lane.
So are drivers actually they're doing compulsory pit stops? Is that the case?
No compulsory pit stops. No compulsory pit stops here tonight. And I would expect that we've got enough fuel on board to make it through 24 laps without any issues at all. In terms of tyres, look, I think from what we saw Monday night, you start to feel the tyres dropping off around about lap 15 here. It's not a terrible track for tyre wear, and particularly with the colder conditions here in the Silver Split, I think these guys will probably get much better tyre wear than they were perhaps expecting. I would think we'll see one stop. Williams having a big moment there, trying to get the power down over that little ridge. We saw that a lot in the goal split as well. Greg Patrick as well, lighting the tyres up there, so he's got to be careful. It's really difficult to get these cars moving with even the tiniest bit of steering lock in them. They just don't like it at all.
Well, especially coming off a 90-degree corner there at turn 8 and just trying to get the power down. These cars are very heavy, very overpowered, and obviously the tyres are just not capable enough to actually responding to that with the low downforce package that is the real Gen3 Supercar that we see in this championship, in the Australian Touring Car Championship, that these cars are very difficult to handle and very difficult to drive, especially getting that power down.
Here comes Tom Williams into turn 1. He's making the move. Oh, that's an interesting line. He's going to have to run off. That's going to... that car is done. A huge moment for Tom Williams. Sent it way too hard on the inside. Realised far too late that he wasn't going to make it, and that car that's done for the night.
That is done. Yeah, he's definitely going to be getting
a big moment. We see Greg Patrick.
Spun
around in the fountain. I don't know whether he's just been taken off his line a little bit there by Williams coming past him, but what a dangerous spot.
Very tricky. It gets very tricky on this part because it's so blind. And there we go,
Nathan Bowman as well. All he can do is sit and wait.
You can't do much because it's such a blind corner. You're just waiting from the traffic just to come by because you can see the car coming through, but as very disguisedly just puts the car inside the plants as well, just being a little bit of just camouflaging with his car, with the colour of his cars, camouflaging with the plants around the fountain. But it's a very tricky situation. There's more contact with one of the cars that we had here. That is Dylan Thomas.
So Dylan Thomas looking to get past Matt Bakir there. Bakir is doing everything he can to hold on in that Alpine Pro Racing Valvoline entry. Just behind Dylan Thomas, Ronald Blong, his teammate, watching on. And Bakir's under a lot of pressure. Dylan Thomas has some pace. He might just try and send it here as we look to turn 1 for more drama, because we love drama, don't we, at the end of the day?
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about here at MC Motorsport, especially with that first race, as we see there, Matt Bakir actually run very deep, and there is the opportunity to capitalise it when you can, and that's exactly what Dylan Thomas has done in the Ford Mustang, already up to 6th place, 7 positions gained for Dylan Thomas. And Matt Bakir, even though he's dropped down, still 10 positions up next to his name, so he's done a good job ahead of his teammate Ronald Long, who's just sitting behind there. But obviously he has seen his teammate made a couple of hits on the wall, so maybe there might be a bit of external damage on that Chevrolet Camaro, so maybe there might be a bit of a team order between the two drivers to maybe swap the positions around, and towards the end we'll find out if the damage is actually severe, or whether the car is actually just stable enough that it can actually keep holding on for the next 12 laps.
Oh, who's this in the wall here? Adrian Gresh has gone into the wall again, trying to send it. We'll go back and take a quick look at that one. He's not even chasing anyone down. He's just missed his braking marker, locks the front end up into the marbles, and all the way down the escape road. Very, very lucky not to really cop any particular damage there, but that's going to cost him a lot of time, a lot of places. You can see Dylan Thomas, Matt Bakir, Ronald Long all charging through. Jake Robillard gets through, and Adrian Gresh all of a sudden back down to 8th. Yeah, that's got to hurt. We should check in out in front. Mitch Curry in the Fox MC Motorsports livery. 1, brilliant looking car. 2, 4.5 seconds out in front of Luke Speck. He's been hovering around this 5-second lead for quite a while. Basically since the start of the race. He's just been putting in hot laps. No pressure, no one else around. He's just going for it. Meanwhile, Luke Speck, there he is.
It's a great duel that we're seeing between the two cars. We're actually looking at the timing screen. There's kind of fluctuating between 6.5 to about 4.5 seconds. So it's great to see that these two are trading times, and they're very equal when it comes to the race pace as well, with a 23.271 on the last lap versus 23.493, so 2 tenths, just under 2 tenths gain from Mitch Curry on the previous lap. But the fastest lap going to the man that runs MC Motorsport with 122.487. So, and even with Luke Speck, he's only just under 3/10 behind him. So that just shows the competitive nature that Mitch Curry and Luke Speck bring into this silver split, and that could be a potential recall for both of them to be joining back into the top split. As we see, one of the drivers in the background looks like he's clipped the barrier there. Greg Patrick again, or not Greg Patrick, I believe this is Jared Williams that has caught up on the tyre barrier there. Just too much throttle entry into the corner and just clips the barrier. Unfortunate. Looks like no damage has been done on that Chevrolet Camaro, but it's great to see that the cars are still running. But yeah, just going back to that point, they're just trading each other fastest lap there. On the previous lap there, Mitch Curry did go a little bit quicker, just over 6/10 faster than Luke Speck. So he's starting to eke up a bit of a gap now, and looks like he's got his tyres in the right window.
Take a look at the gap back to Aaron James. So you've got a 5-second gap back to Luke Speck from Mitch Curry, 15, almost 16 seconds back to Aaron James. For Curry and Speck, if they can carry this through the rest of the race, as we see Hayden Cupid making the move on Martin Hallinan, so he's desperately trying to recover some positions after that lap 1, turn 2 incident. Yeah, look, it's a big gap, huge gap.
I believe Adrian Grench was, when Adrian Grench was in third place, the gap was roughly about 8 seconds behind Luke Speck. So obviously take him out of the equation. That's the true gap that we're seeing between Aaron James and Luke Speck. So yeah. But anything else in between, yeah, it just shows that the two are just putting on a class here in Heat 1 of Round 3 of the Supercars Championship presented by MC Motorsports. And the leader of MC Motorsports is leading the way with 4.2 seconds next to his name. So it looks like Luke has taken a little bit of time out on this previous lap there. The previous lap, the Mitch Curry set at 124 flat versus a 123.339 from Luke Speck. So the time is coming down, slow and steady. But these guys are just going to be
crashed at the hairpin. He's crashed at the hairpin. So we'll take a look at this. Ronald Long coming into the hairpin, and look, not surprising, it happens here all the time, but he's just put too much throttle in.
Oh, teammates.
Teammates.
Yeah,
that's Matt Bakir.
His teammate.
Matt Bakir has given it a bit too much and come across in front of Ron Long, and he's come off much worse for wear as a result. Not what he would have been hoping for either, as Josh Harris makes the pass around the outside there as well. So Harris, he's making some moves back from his drive-through penalty. It hasn't cost him too much. He's down 4 spots from his starting position. Adrian Gresh as well is starting to move back up through there, and now chasing down Jake Robiart up ahead. So a few little battles going on. Chayton Byron's still under pressure here. Hayden Cupid has been slowly reeling him in, and despite the damage to that Mustang, Byron's actually keeping some decent pace going. So Hayden Cupid not far behind, but yeah, definitely starting to reel it in. Nathan Bowman enjoying a little moment of solitude out there, which I don't think is going to last too long.
Well, he's got a lot of pace, Nathan Bowman. He's already up 13 positions from his starting grid. He's got 8.5 to the gap to the driver to the driver ahead of him, which is Ronald Long for Alpine Pro Racing. But we just did see there, we did see that those two teammates were
Byron goes wide.
Contact.
Cupid's through.
Yeah, Cupid has gone back through. Obviously, a driver that started on the front row. It was a Ford versus Camaro front row. We've got a different Ford chasing the Camaro up at the front, but it's very unfortunate for Hayden Cupid, but he's doing a nice recovery drive. That's what I can say for the 999 in Hayden Cupid, doing a very strong recovery drive for the Sideways Esports Motorsport Ford Mustang. But we're just going to keep an eye on him as he gets towards the end of the stint, as we see there Nathan Bowman just get a little bit too wide and just clipping the barriers and just losing all that momentum. And that's what it is, Jared, with this track on the final corner. You just need that momentum. Yes, it's a slow, lazy first gear corner. You're probably running at about 40 to 50 kilometers an hour in these Ford Mustangs, Chevrolet Camaros, but it's just so lazy. And with the way the car is, it just makes it more lazy.
Absolutely, it does. Just calling out, Matt Bakir has just served a drive-through for that contact with Ronald Long, so certainly getting penalised pretty quickly by race control for that one, and he's back out of the pits now. That's dragged him, unfortunately, all the way back down to 16th where he started. So despite the gains made earlier, he's going to have to start that all over again. Here comes Hayden Cupid looking up the inside of Nathan Bowman. Bowman is out wide. This is a tough corner to make the pass on, and Bowman's gone tagged. They've gone sideways.
that's going to be a hard one to judge there. Nathan Bowman spun the car around, so he's gone in the background. So there are two that made contact. Unfortunately, the worst offender from that was Nathan Bowman. As we try to pull up a replay, what happened there? Oh, it's just too tight to call there. Looks like the gap was closing, the door was closing between Bowman and Cooper. Then unfortunately Bowman just lost the rear end there. Maybe a little bit of frustration that he got tagged by Hayden Cooper, but the door was closing a little bit, and it's going to be a very hard call to judge.
I'll leave that to race control.
Exactly. That's why we're in the comm booth, Jared. We can make our assumptions, but we don't make the final calls here, ladies and gentlemen. We make the calls to bring you a broadcast, but when it comes to racing, no thanks.
Yeah, no, we'll leave that to the experts. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It is going to be very close though, because it did look like the door was closing a little bit, but there was sufficient room to run side by side. But we're not certain. Well, we'll keep an eye on what the stewards say at the end of it. But meanwhile, back up towards the front, Josh Harris looking to make a move on Simon Caplet in for 7th place. It looks like he's got a lot better pace now than the Camaro ahead of him. So despite serving that drive-through penalty, he is starting to put on some pressure and make his way up back towards the front of the field there, so that he can get himself in a really nice position for the second race that we'll be broadcasting to you very shortly. But this time flies. We are almost towards the end of this race here as we go through the leaderboard for our top 10. It is Mitch Curry still leading the way in the 89 MC Motorsports with the 15 of Luke Speck, Sideways Esports Ford Mustang leading in position 2. And then Aaron James for BP Outdoors Motorsport in 3rd place. Dylan Thomas for Fishy Motorsport making a nice progression into 4th place. Jake Robiard for Everything Simulator Racing Ford Mustang in 5th. Hayden Gredge, Simon Caplet, Josh Harris, Ronald Long and Hayden Cupid, who just made the move there on Chayton Byron for Valve Esports, is now inside the top 10 again, but probably potentially with a question mark over his name on that move.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of questions out there, but we'll have to keep an eye on it now. Jared Williams is on the back of Martin Lipsky here. Just looking at Paul Martin Lipsky's in the middle of this a little bit. He's got an Everything Simulated entry out in front, which I think is actually Tom Williams, who's tracking along a bit further back, actually lapped. So it's a tough position to be in between the two teammates. Got to keep an eye both forward and back, but looks like Williams just trying to get back up through the pack. Not too bad so far, up to 16th, up 5 spots from where he started, and certainly a lot of moves. Really, the top mover today, as we take a look forward, Jake Robiard up 13 places into 5th right now from his starting position in this race. So it's been a solid drive from Jake Robiard. We know he can handle a GT3 and certainly proving himself here again in the Gen3 Supercar.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that sort of form and progression that he's been able to make, as we see one of the drivers in the background there looks like Nathan Bowman. Just to put some misery to the wound, he's actually got some front end damage, and the car's just pretty much limping. Is already
some
a lap
front end
down
damage
on the rest of the field.
That's a very kind way to put it, with how much damage Nathan Bowman's carrying on that front bar. The poor bloke.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a hard day, unfortunately. He was coming from the back of the field, trying to work his way up inside the top 10, and unfortunately that is the day done for him. But now, as we go towards the 16th place, we are starting to see the gap actually between the front two close up quite a fair bit. It is 2.6 now between Mitch Curry and Luke Speck. So the gap has been closing between the Englishman and the Australian in for that first 2 positions. They are starting to pull a huge gap over Aaron James in 3rd place. So that battle for the top position, for the top prize, is not over yet. We've just got over 7 laps to go till the end of this race. So anything can happen with 7 laps to go. With a track like this, even though it is a 3.7 kilometer circuit, very fast, a lot of 90-degree corners, a lot of flowing corners, and a few slow corners as well. Where is he getting all this time? It's incredible to see at the time that Luke Speck is getting on that last lap. It was a 23 flat for Mitch Curry, so he gained a little bit more compared to Luke Speck, but only just over 2 tenths between the two drivers. So it's going to get close towards the end of this race.
We haven't actually checked in with Mitch Curry for a little while, as we see one of the drivers just struggling to get it into the pits. Someone's spun around there. That's one of our back markers. It might be Nathan Bowman. Poor guy. He's having a hard night tonight. Josh Harris continues to try and track down Simon Caplet. They've been battling for a little while now. Mitch Curry, I wanted to check in here because I thought perhaps he had copped some damage and wasn't able to run quite as quickly. It certainly doesn't look like it. You know, his last lap at 123 flat, his best lap here tonight at 122.49, so he's certainly not lifting. It's simply Luke Speck being more consistent with his laps right now. So although Luke Speck's best lap is a 122.7, so it hasn't set as fast of a lap as Mitch Curry has, he continues to set more and more quicker laps, and it's not much. He's just carving little bits out of Mitch Curry. 123.37 there, Luke Speck at 122.95, so another 4/10 out on that lap. He's looking at the timing right now. He's got 4 laps to run. If he can just pull another half second or so each lap out of Curry, it's going to be a very, very close finish. And looking ahead,
he's got lap traffic. I was
exactly
about to make
right.
there.
Seth Stevens now in front of Mitch Curry. Curry's going to look for a way past, but again, trying to find a place to make a move through here, it's really, really limited. So Curry's going to get his opportunity now. Luke Speck's going to hope that he can make it past Seth Stevens even faster and just pull a bit more time back in. But that gap down to 2.1 now and closing.
Yeah, all that time was compromised through the fountain section leading up towards the move that Curry did make in the end there at the entry of turn 6. So between turn 2 to 5, he lost over 4/10 between himself and Luke Speck, and now it's up to Luke Speck to try and see if he can get past the back marker in Seth Stevens. So down the order there, unfortunately, we did see that massive lockup on that corner as well a few laps back, where he actually locked the brakes, almost collected one of the drivers ahead of him. But that's where we saw him take a monumental crash in the tyre barrier. So he doesn't want to have any more PTSD, letting the lead driver go through. And we can see there Luke Speck flashing the lights from Seth Stevens just to get him to move out of the way. But again, taking advantage of the slipstream could be the advantage for Luke Speck as he comes in towards turn 1. Is he going to get the move done? No, he's actually going to hold on to it. So
he's going to be held up here fair way.
This might be a deal here between Camaro versus Camaro, Chevrolet versus Chevrolet.
little bit of brand love. There we go. So Stevens out of the way. We'll take a look a bit further back. Aaron James has all of a sudden closed right in on Dylan Thomas and looking for a way past. So these guys going into turn 1 are going to be at it through the fountain as well. We'll keep an eye on the battle up front with just a few laps left to go. And a massive shout out to all of the drivers and a couple of others that have joined us in the chat for tonight's stream. Always a pleasure to have you along as we bring you the silver split of the MC Motorsport MCV8 series, round 3 here at Long Beach, and race 1 just barreling towards the conclusion of this 75k first race. 150k's to go in race number 2. We do have a limited fuel tank size, so there's absolutely going to have to be pit stops for fuel in race 2, so strategy is going to play into that in a big way. But right now, just a couple of battles left on track for us to keep an eye on. If everyone keeps it clean and tidy, this should be pretty close to the finishing order. Luke Speck, though, within a second now of Mitch Curry.
Yeah, and he gained a lot of time there in that last sector. I was actually keeping an eye on that delta time. He gained 5/10 leading up into those final sections between 9s, 10 and 11. So the last 3 corners of this racetrack, he gained so much time on Mitch Curry. So I wonder if maybe Mitch actually may have overused those tyres, obviously stretching out the gap to roughly what we saw, about a 6.6 second lead at one point. And now I just wonder if the tyre life is coming into effects of the MC Motorsport driver, potentially with Luke Speck keeping his tyres in better conditions, and that's why he's able to close up on the 89. But we just don't have a lot of laps to go here, just 2.5 laps to go to the end of this race. Passing becomes very hard around this track, but can Luke Speck, the Englishman, from
big moment for Mitch Curry. He's sideways into the wall.
Ooh,
those tyres will let him go. He's very lucky.
Huge moment.
Very lucky to be going, but
so the race leader of Mitch Curry makes a monumental mistake at turn 8, drifts the car sideways, doesn't get too much damage going for a side-on contact. So we see another back marker.
Lipsky's been spun around.
Yeah, one of the drivers says looks like he's gone around there as well. Another driver as well pulling off to the side. Looks like he may have been at fault, but at the same time, So much action going on here in the silver split here, Jared. It's incredible to see. Mitch Curry goes from the lead and drops down to P2, side contact at the entry of turn 8, and Luke Speck says thank you so much, but it looks like there's not much damage on the 89, so it looks like the car is still quite clean. And I was going to say that's actually not a bad way to actually, that's a bit of a compromise there, that you actually get side damage rather than front damage in these cars. So
I don't know how intentional that was for Mitch Curry, but he got very, very lucky to end up going side-on into that tyre barrier. These cars don't cope well with front impacts. They tend to throw suspension geometry out very, very quickly. So a side impact about the best that Mitch could have hoped for with such a hard hit into that wall. And it's allowing him to stay on the back of Speck. The question will be now whether he's got the tyres and whether he's got the pace to get that number 1 spot back. Luke Speck just has to hold on for another lap and a quarter, and an unlikely win looks like it may just be his. We're going to stick with this battle up front, but keep an eye on your timing tower. There's still a few other drivers that have been going out for a little while back there, and we will, of course, try and catch any moves that happen. This is where the battle's at, though, right now. Mitch Curry leading this race from the start. An unfortunate mistake at just the wrong time has set him back into second. He's been very lucky to be able to recover that car with such a hard impact, and now Luke Speck has it all to do.
So we are approaching the final lap here, ladies and gentlemen, between Luke Speck and Mitch Curry. The gap is still roughly the same, 0.6 of a second, but it is the Ford driver in Luke Speck, Mitch Curry in the Chevrolet Camaro for the last time in Heat 1, as they have crossed the last lap, get turn 1 done, go through the fountain. It's all about that final sector that he just needs to get the perfect drive, needs to get as close as he can, because I feel like that's where Luke has got the upper hand on the Chevrolet driver. So it's about now, and he can't,
That'll be it.
And that is going to be the rough conclusion for Mitch Curry. Unfortunately, on the exit of turn 5, just the tyres could not cope anymore, and his car said, see you later, I can't deal with this anymore. It's off to Narnia you go, Mitch Curry. But it is Luke Speck that does keep the car clean and is in the car 15 in the hands of Luke Speck for Sideways Esports. Obviously, he's got a few more corners to go, but till the end of this race, no challenge has been made on the Brit driver. So the first man, the only man from Great Britain in the UK, is about to come across the line as he tries to get past some lap traffic. But actually, that's his teammate getting past lap traffic. But through he is, through the final corner. Luke Speck for Sideways Esports takes the victory for Heat 1 for round 3 in the silver split for the V8 Supercars Championship presented by MC Motorsports. Mitch Curry holds on to P2, a bit of a disappointing P2, but nonetheless on the podium on his return to the championship in silver split. And then Dylan Thomas right behind, who looks to be holding on to 3rd place at the moment, and he looks like he's going to see the checkered flag in 3rd place. So we've got Luke Speck, Mitch Curry, Dylan Thomas for Fishy Motorsports, 9 positions gained there. And as you saw, the lone driver for Fishy Motorsports has got another driver on the podium for this round.
Absolutely, a fantastic finish for a lot of these drivers. Adrian Gresh just coming across the line now, as well as Josh Harris. But we're keeping an eye on this battle here. Hayden Cupid and Martin Hallinan have been at it all the way down through there, and Martin Hallinan goes too deep under brakes, goes wide and gives up 3 spots. Hayden Cupid will be cheering, as will Greg Patrick. He's got to make it to the line yet. Chaden Byron might just get away with this as well. Martin Hallinan, a critical error, costing him far more spots than he was hoping for, but really caught up in that battle with Cupid. And in the end, comes home in 13th. So really disappointing for Martin Hallinan, but he had to go for it. This is racing. You've got to give it a crack.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great recovery drive there for Hayden Cupid after starting P2, finishes inside the top 10. So even though his rival with even though the contact made with Josh Harris only lost a couple of positions, is only a couple of positions ahead of him. So it's a good recovery drive for both drivers, you could say, in the way Josh Harris, after serving the drive-through penalties, getting to work his way back up towards 7th place in the ADHD Racing Chevrolet Camaro, and Hayden Cupid getting himself inside the top 10. But it is Luke Speck for Sideways Esports that takes the checkered flag, takes the victory, and takes the line honours in the first race here for round 3 at Long Beach. What a race that was, Jared. That was absolutely incredible. What a way to bring back my welcome return to the MC Motorsports commentary booth. Luke Speck, Mitch Curry, Dylan Thomas on the podium after that first split. and then Aaron James, Jake Robiard inside the top 5. Aiden Grench, Josh Harris, Ronald Long, Simon Caplet, and Hayden Cupid inside the top 10. Some great racing up and down the field here as well, and it's good to see the competitive nature that these guys show on the opening few laps to see how close they are. And then now we're going to get to some longer distance racing. Strategy, tires, fuel, it's going to be off charts here, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's what it's all about. Can't wait to watch it with you. We've just got to wait for the drivers to get through their mid-race prep. But yeah, look, something to call out from the race results. The top 14, only half the field finishing on that lead lap. So it really just does speak to how difficult Long Beach can be. Something goes wrong here and it can take you out of the race in a very big way before you even know what's happened. So look, Luke Speck and Mitch Curry, masterclass in race 1. Keep in mind though, reverse top 10 grid. So Speck and Curry will start on the 5th row. This is an opportunity for Hayden Cupid and Simon Caplet, particularly Cupid after starting up the front and being caught up in that incident very, very early on. Turn 1, turn 2 of lap 1, fought his way back to 10th, and that's going to set him up beautifully for a start for this longer second race. 48 laps, 150 Ks ahead of us. Folks at home, grab yourselves a drink, settle on in, because we have it all yet to come as we jump on into race number 2 here, round 3 at Long Beach. The sun's starting to go down over the beautiful coastline of Los Angeles, and while we are here, again, we mentioned it Monday night, but our thoughts absolutely with all of the residents affected by the horrific fires. It's something that here in Australia we know all too well, just the risks and the damage that comes from one of nature's greatest destructive forces, really. So hoping that everyone out there is doing okay. We are, of course, thankfully in a simulated environment, so very, very safe, even if we are going into the wall, as a few of our drivers did there in that session tonight. Nick Patasso, race number 2, who you got your eye on?
It's all about the hard questions there, all about trying to see who I'm going to go for, what the prediction's going to be. But if it's going to be a reverse top 10, I don't know. I don't think I can go past Luke Speck. He's going to be starting in 10th place at the start of this race. But with a driver like him, he is going to start to really... I think he's going to find a way to carve himself up through the field as early as he could. And I think for his pace and for the consistency that he showed and the way that he was able to preserve his tyres, I think he could definitely do the double here tonight and go for the race victory. But also, got to keep your eyes on a couple of drivers as well. Josh Harris, who showed some great pace towards the end of that stint. Even a driver like Scott Stevens from the back of the field. Obviously, we can see his name, Nathan Bowman too, potentially. Hayden Cupid. I mean, there's so many drivers to tell here, and there's so many drivers to know who's going to start where. But it is Hayden Cupid that will start on the pole position after finishing 10th in Heat 1 as we wait for the cars to line themselves up and get themselves ready for the green flag as we wait for a couple of drivers. We are ready to go here, ladies and gentlemen, as the revs rise here. For race 2 of round 3 of the Supercar Championship, and we are green flag racing underway. Josh Harris yet again, another strong start around the inside line, gets the car back into turn 1 as they go towards turn 2. For the first time, we see 24 Supercars flying down at high speed. Hard on the brakes they go with Hayden Cupid first in line, and then we've got Josh Harris. Mitch Curry goes all the way up to P4, P5, so great start from him from 9th of the grid. Luke Speck from the winner of the race 1 is down there in 10th place, but here we go, the traffic jam that is Long Beach turns 2 and 3 and 4. But it is Hayden Cupid this time round, not turned around by Josh Harris, is now in the lead ahead of the ADHD racer in 12th place. Simon Caplet in 3rd place. Aiden Granch and Mitch Curry round up our top 5. A much cleaner start here, I will say though, Jared, for the silver split. Obviously these drivers, I would imagine the mindset is long distance racing and keep it calm in the opening laps. As you say that, Chayton Byron has shot off into that escape road again. So Byron really struggling with his brakes into that corner, and just as you said that, I was thinking, he's going to curse somebody here, and sure enough, Chayton Byron goes flying down the escape road. Very, very lucky once again not to end up in the wall. But Hayden Cupid out in front, Josh Harris right on his tail as we make our way through at the end of lap 1. Still 47 more laps to go. These drivers needing to just stay calm, keep composed, and settle on into their rhythm. Absolutely, and I feel like that's what the drivers are starting to do at the moment. You can see drivers not putting too much pressure. I think the only one that's putting a lot of pressure is Josh Harris on Hayden Kibbe. He just wants to take advantage of that and takes advantage of the tyres being at the optimal temperature with the right tyre pressures, just trying to get past him before that long haul. We did see Jake Robillard actually clip the wall trying to get and make an attempt to make a move on Mitch Curry, but just too much throttle going into the entry of turn 2. It drops him a few car lengths back behind the 89, but overall, still a really good positionings by all the drivers. You can see a couple of positions being made there, a couple of positions being dropped there, both for Stephen, I would say brothers, but I don't think they are brothers, but Seth Stevens dropping down as well as Scott Stevens. So you can see a couple of those drivers just finding their rhythm at the moment. They don't really see too much progression going on at the moment.
Keep an eye on Luke Speck here. Big inside move as he tries to get past Greg Patrick. He's going to struggle to pull it up there. Forces Patrick to the outside. They're side by side on the run down to the hairpin. Speck's on the outside. There. Bit of panel rubbing. That's forced him off into the marbles. He's going to have to give that one up and have a try again next time around. That was bold.
Hard racing there between those two drivers. Luke Speck trying to get past Greg Patrick there. Greg Patrick saying, I know it's the opening laps, but you're not going to get past me that easy. But that should do a really good job. Just keep the car on the outside, that turn into the inside line. Very narrow line as you go to the exit of turn 10 into turn 11. But he did a really good job to actually keep the car there ahead of Luke Speck, because Luke Speck was potentially hoping for him to actually give up that position, as we see a car that looks to be one of the Alpine pro racing drivers. Valvoline sponsored Camaros looks like made contact with, I believe that is Matt Bekir. Yes. Looks like he made contact with the fence there at turn 2. But it's good to see that drivers in this early stage is just not giving up, because it's about track position and it's about what they can do when it comes to the pit stops in a few laps' time.
Absolutely it is, and we see Greg Patrick and Luke Speck still going at it. Luke Speck is just hanging in there. Let's see if he puts the move on at the end of this straight again. A few battles going on around the place though. Daniel Harrod now looking for an opportunity to pass Darren Loughnan and not finding it there. The lineup of cars down this back straight. Luke Speck looks to the inside. Greg Patrick takes just enough of a defensive line to make him reconsider there. And Speck tucks in for another lap. Again, early days, only lap 3. Oh, Speck, a big move there, contact. That was bold.
They're both the barriers as well there. So the contact was made at turn 11, and as soon as they got to the exit, they both made the fence there on the outside there. That's going to be some. That's definitely going to be some steering damage there for Luke Speck. We see one of the cars behind, one of the Camaros behind Luke Speck, trying to get past him. Yeah, just so a little bit of bent steering potentially for Luke Speck as he tries to throw the car back on Greg Patrick. So the two drivers going hammer and tong in the opening laps here. And in race 2, this is what we love to see in the feature race here for round 3 of the MC Motorsport Supercar Championship. But I think that might be a little bit of a confidence, maybe a little bit of lack of confidence there on the turn and the last corner, because even though he was battling up towards the front in that first race, maybe he just hasn't had enough battles in that mid-pack, so he's just trying to find his way through, as we see Greg Patrick going all crazy on the throttle there. And what I'm seeing here as well, Jared, I'm not so sure, is the different lines that they take towards turn 8 as you take the wide entry, you take the narrow entry. Just which one do you think is the best line? Because they both obviously achieve the same result. But is it something to do with tyre life? Is it something to do with the driver's favourite positioning of the cars? What could it potentially be?
Look, I'm not convinced I actually have a good answer for you on that one, Nick. From what we've been seeing here, it really does seem to depend more on the exit that the driver's trying to take out of that previous corner, and just the line they're forced to take to try and get any power down. It's not had a huge impact from what we've seen so far in anyone's ability to make a move, and no one seems too bothered about trying to defend it. And I think the reason for that is we see Luke Speck considering a move in turn 1. That's a big moment. Greg Patrick into the wall. Speck can't capitalise because he's been clipped as well. They're going to go through the roundabout, past the fountain, now getting all sorts of caught up with traffic behind them. Patrick lucky to get away with that one.
I don't think They must have. There must be so much damage on these cars, but yeah, these guys are pushing it to 120%. That these two are putting on a great show for us here tonight in the feature race. It's great to see the Chevrolet and Camaro rivalry resume in the virtual world, as we saw in race 1 between Curry and Luke Speck, and now we're seeing it with Greg Patrick and Luke Speck as well. So you see a bit of a deep moment there at turn 8. He's lost the backhand as we go on board with the Ford driver, trying to get an outside move, maybe throw a bit of a fake move, go left to go right. Or was he going to try and hold around the outside? Hard on the brakes goes Greg Patrick, a little bit deeper on the brakes there for Greg Patrick. So nice defensive driving by the 311 Chevrolet Camaro. And it's just all a bit of a waiting game for Luke Speck. But this is the problem. He's losing a lot of time. He's still stuck in 10th place as well, Jared, where he started, whilst the driver that finished P2, Mitch Curry, is holding on to 5th place. And the gap is growing between the battle pack between Greg Smith and the driver ahead of him, Ronald Long, which is around about, from what I'm looking at, 3.3 seconds.
Yeah, quite a gap as we see Speck again trying to send it up the inside. Patrick playing a fantastic defensive game right now, and that is one of the hardest things to do well, is to defend on a racetrack. You can't drive in your mirrors a whole lot, and unfortunately, as Speck gets very, very sideways there, has to correct, and you see how much he has to work that steering wheel to stop it from stepping out completely. He's pushing very, very hard. This is only lap 6. I think at this point he's got to be thinking long-term strategy. Sure, he's stuck behind Patrick for the moment, but the gap out in front is not opening up a great deal. There's a few seconds separating them all, but at this point, yeah, great battle, look for your opportunities, but you don't have to put the car at risk so early on in a 150k race.
Yeah, and as we saw in that first race, he's got a lot of confidence in these last few sections. On the exit of turn 8, now he's actually looks to open up the corner, potentially go for an inside move, at least to an outside. No, he doesn't. So, but
big moment there for Speck.
Picking
sideways.
Out from the last race was.
He's missed the pit entry.
Oh wow! What's happened there between Luke Speck? Looks like something dramatic has happened there. It looks like he's coming to the pit lane, so it looks like he's serving his pit lane, but if he comes to the pit lane, he's going to be spending a lot of time there, because he's going to repair for some damage after that.
Gets loose, decides he's going to make the early pit stop, doesn't pull it up in time, just straight into the wall. That's going to be a huge amount of damage. I hope he's got a fast repair up the sleeve, because yeah, he's going to be sitting there for a while otherwise. Let's take a look at some of the other battles going on around the place, because up front, these four, the battle for third has been going on for a while. Not a whole lot of change in amongst that, but still it rages on. A drive-through for contact with car number 311 for car 13 from race control. Looks like it might be Luke Speck, actually, the black flag there anyhow. And Jared Williams having to serve an earlier drive-through as well. Look, I think you've got to imagine that that's taken Luke Speck out of the running for tonight. That's really disappointing for him.
And that's a big shame, because he showed some great pace in race 1, and also was trying to use that pace to get through into the second one. But unfortunately, the couple of things that had a factor in it is just being down the order. Where you finish first, you start yourself inside, you start in 10th place with the reverse grid format that we have here at MC Motorsport, but as well, just a bit of frustration as well that you're down the order. Like, obviously not, but getting some good points next to your name in that first one, but then you have to do it all over again, and you have to demonstrate consistency, you have to demonstrate patience, and you have to be able to demonstrate good racecraft as well. So unfortunately, it kind of crept up on him a little bit. Maybe just wasn't prepared for the cluster that is around this track. And Nathan Bowman makes contact with I believe that is Daniel Harrod there in the Camaro.
Big contact, and that's going to slow them both down. Look, all starting to space out here a little bit more. Dylan Thomas tacking onto the back of Jake Robiard. Mitch Curry up ahead, slowly closing in on Adrian Gresh. So this battle, one to keep an eye on. I've just noticed the boss man himself, Mitch Curry, in the chat asking for some onboard shots. We were on board with Luke Speck a moment ago, but just for you, have a look at yourself, mate. On board with Mitch Curry, and let's see just how well you work that steering wheel as you look to make a move down the end of this straight on Adrian Gresh. Going to have to close up the gap a fair bit more than that, though, my friend. Not doing it from half a second back. Mitch Curry looking resplendent in the blue and black race suit.
I was going to say that reminds me back at the time when I was in 2011, just scuba diving down the Great Barrier Reef. Kind of reminds me of the ocean. It just kind of reminds me of the corals with that
peaceful ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Just with the suit and livery, the suit design that he's got on his car, just make me feel like just picturing like myself scuba diving all those years ago in the Great Barrier Reef. It's quite funny as well. But it's good to see some creativeness there with all the liveries from some of the drivers. Obviously, we see there with Nathan Bowman. Plain and simple, gets the job done. He's running it himself inside 16th place, 8 positions gained in the opening field up. So we do know with Nathan Bowman, gets through the grid, gets through the order pretty quickly. It's just how he's going to be able to maintain that for the rest of the race, especially now this is a longer race. We'll find out in due time, but it is still great to see some amazing liveries that we're seeing here in the iRacing world from all of the 24 drivers that we have here tonight. And it's very hard to pick which one is the best one. Obviously, you've seen the broadcast on both gold and the silver class there, Jared. So I wonder if you have any favourites amongst your picks from all the drivers from both divisions.
Look, I'm going to give a team award and I'm going to give an individual award. The team with, I reckon, the best looking set of liveries has got to be Fishy Motorsports. All the same design but different colours per driver, and they all look freaking amazing, particularly when you've got a run of 3 or 4 of them coming down the track at you. Look, probably not as much fun to watch if you're a driver in front of them and they're all hunting you down, but I think they look fantastic as a group. For individual designs, though, unfortunately he's not on track right now, but Scott Stevens, actually, sorry, no, he is. He's up in 11th at the moment. It's tricky. Scott Stevens, the HR Jinx Shifters entry, he had an absolutely phenomenal looking livery in the GT3 series that finished up just before the MCV8 series started, and he's followed it up here with another amazing looking livery. I want to go and have a look at it, but I'm keeping my eyes on Mitch Curry here because he's pushing really, really hard. It's actually costing him some time. Dylan Thomas starting to reel him in. This is going to turn into a 3-way battle for third in just a second.
Yeah, absolutely, and we can just see there as well Dylan Thomas on Mitch Curry and Aidan Grench down up in 3rd place, while the guy in the background, Jake Robillard, is just lurking in the background, just hanging about, maybe just cooling his tyres down, just taking it easy, and maybe just going to try and work himself in an undercut situation, or when these guys start running a bit too much in the dirty air and start feeling that aero wash amongst these supercars, these Gen 3 V8 supercars, we can see Jake Robillard potentially starting to come through with cleaner tyres, with better tyre preservation, as we see
Nathan Bowman into the wall.
Nathan Bowman in the wall, and that is monumental damage on the car. Looks like he's just run it wide. It looks like he gassed it up too early.
Yeah, he gets on the power. There's a little crest there, and if you're not careful, that's exactly what happens. The car will just step out from underneath you, and that car is done.
Yeah,
not going anywhere.
Smoke galore there. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to make it back into the pit lane, so that's going to be an unfortunate retirement for the plain whites racing in Nathan Bowman, unfortunately. So lots of work to do for the next round for Bowman, but hopefully he'll be able to get himself a little bit more prepared for the next round, and hopefully we might be able to see him inside that top 10 in the silver split. But back up towards the bar for 3rd place, Adrian Grench, Mitch Curry, Dylan Thomas has actually dropped off from the Camaro drivers in 5th place. So a mistake on that previous lap has definitely hurt his progress, and to keeping close contacts between the two Camaro drivers. Jake Robillard is actually closing in a little bit on Dylan Thomas as well, as we can see there in the foreground. Hayden Cupid and Josh Harris still lead the way. The gap is growing 3.5, 3.6 now between the top two. Whilst there is a bit of a separation, there is a bit of a gap between Josh Harris and Aidan Grench, 2.6. So I feel like these guys are starting to close up a little bit on Josh Harris, as we can see them on the track map visually. I think they are closing more on Harris than Harris is on Cupid.
Just all starting to play out a little bit here as different strategies come in. I think in terms of fuel, and I have to remind myself, I think you're talking around about lap 15 or 20, the fuel window opens up here at Long Beach. So these guys will be starting to think about how they go. Are they going to start conserving fuel so they can do a longer first stint, or are they thinking about coming in early and getting out of the way and then rolling through a longer second stint, or are they just going to split it in half? We're getting pretty close to about that time here, folks, where we start to see the different pit strategies come into play. I know a lot of these drivers just go with a halfway point as a nice, easy way to get it done, but you really do have to think about the changing track conditions. We're seeing the sun starting to set already. We've still got another 35, 36 laps to go here. The track temp is going to start coming down in a big way, and that's going to really change how these tyres respond. You're going to get a little bit more life out of them, but it's also going to be much harder to keep them in temperature as the track temp decreases.
Absolutely, and with the sun setting, it's definitely about these drivers settling in to a rhythm. The tyres are cooling down, but you just don't want to overheat the tyres at the same time. As we see, Josh Harris looks like he's come into the pit lane, or is that just a timing error that's come through his name? It's actually dropped well down the order. No, it's not.
Josh Harris has crashed. That's what's happened. Let's go back and see if we can catch what's actually happened to poor Mr. Harris. Coming down that back straight, no pressure on. We get a shot from the
is he running too deep? Yeah, he has.
He's just had to go down
there you
and get that spun around. Unfortunately, doesn't get the flick done either, so it's been a 3-point turn, and he's had to wait this out until he can actually get underway. That's cost him a lot of positions. Really unfortunate for Josh Harris, who's having a great race.
Yeah, it was actually because I was watching that timing go down, but I just wondered if it was a little bit of a glitch in the system. But unfortunately, putting the pressure, trying to put pressure on Hayden Cupid has gotten to him, and he's actually toppled down the order well outside the top 10, just outside the top 10 in 11th place. So a lot of positions lost there for the ADHD Chevrolet Camaro inspired Stone Brothers Racing Pertec livery, run famously by Marcus Ambrose throughout 2001, I believe, I want to say, from 2000 all the way up to 2005 through his last round in the Australian Touring Cars Championship, which is known as the V8 Supercars. But it's great to see, like I said, it's one livery that might annoy some Ford fans, that's for sure. Especially him and Ryan Palmer with the ADHD Racing running some very different liveries. I remember that it was it was the first season of, trying to remember from the GT3 Championship, where it was both Ryan Palmer and Josh Harris. They were running the Ford Mustang, and they decided to be sneaky and run the HRT livery from 2005 that they ran on their Ford Mustang. So that was actually quite funny. So it looks like a bit of a reputation that the boys are doing at ADHD Racing.
A big moment for Mitch Curry as he tries to put power down, getting the car very, very sideways. Yeah, look, I figure from an ADHD perspective, if you can't be known for being the fastest on track, you've got to be known for something, and these guys have definitely chosen liveries as their thing for the MC Motorsport series that they compete in. We're taking a look off the back of Adrian Gresh here. Mitch Curry, despite that issue out of the hairpin, closing that gap down very, very quickly and straight on the tail of Gresh. He's been sitting there for some time now, and just trying to find the way past is challenging. Gresh, I think, has hit that wall just about every time that he's come through. I don't know how his left rear suspension is feeling right now, but it's going to end up costing him if he doesn't get it under control. He's pushing very, very hard, though, to try and stay ahead of Curry, and Curry looks, you've got to say, more composed, despite the bit of wheel spin out of the hairpin. He's certainly pushing it hard to try and get the speed differential minimise and even start to close down the gap, but it certainly does look super, super settled in that green Fox livery.
It does look very strong. As we saw towards the back end of that first race, that 89 Chev Camaro was actually very strong in that first sector, and it's very well demonstrated on the onboards. That car seems to be really be able to hook that car up in that first sector. It just comes to the last sector where he actually struggles a little bit on the power and just loses a bit of flow. That's how the drivers ahead of him are actually gaining a little bit more time. As you see,
Greg Patrick, huge amount of damage there.
Yeah, big damage on that car. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see what happened there. We're seeing the end result there for Greg Patrick. A shame, because he was actually running some very good laps there and some very good racing for the driver there as he tries to safely
careful not
pull
to
into
take
the
out
pit
Josh
lane.
Harris. You see that
Very
far
nicely.
too often here at Long Beach. People intending to go to the pits, they stay on that wide line out of the hairpin, and they end up having another driver that they'll cut the nose off as they go into the pits. So glad to see that Patrick has thought that one through and not had that happen. I've seen that happen, yeah, like I said, quite a few times in the last couple of weeks. And
Is that legal though?
It's terrifying.
Is that legal to run that wide line and then cut into the pit lane?
Look, it's not illegal, but I suspect there's probably a couple of sporting code entries that would have something to say about it as well. So we see Scott Stevens, that HR Jinx Shifters livery that I absolutely love. He's closing down Aaron James here and looking to make the move. Can't quite get it done here, but we'll keep an eye on him as we come down to the end of the straight. He's definitely got the pace.
Yeah, and also we have to remind our viewers, Scott Stevens actually had a DNF in race 1, so this is a nice
There we go,
comeback
big
drive
dive
from
up the
Scott
inside.
Stevens.
Can he get it pulled up? Brakes are glowing.
Oh, glowing, and he's pulled it up very nicely there. Can he cut the nose of Aaron James? Yes, he does, and he's actually got that move done and dusted. That's up to P8. So what a recovery drive this has been for Scott Stevens from the back of the field towards P8. That's an incredible achievement there by the 51.
Mitch Curry's just made it through as well. Mitch Curry's just made it through on Adrian Gresh. We'll go back and we'll take another look at that one. Big dive coming into turn 1.
Oh, very late move there by Mitch Curry. Looks like he was settling in to stay behind Aiden Grange, but just thought, you know what, I could take a little bit of the brake pressure off and go for it again. But that's what I'm saying. He's very strong in Sector 1, Mitch Curry. That's where he's able to take advantage of his Camaro. And you can just see there very well demonstrated that he's just got that ability to pull the car up, be confident in the car, be confident in its brakes. And now it's the time for him to try and catch Hayden Cupid. 8.9 seconds between him and the Ford driver for Sideways Esports versus MC Motorsports. But we are on lap 16 of 48 here, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got a lot of racing to go. The first pit stops will start to come through very shortly.
It's Chaden Byron stopped in the background.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Chaden Byron looks like he's stopped. Looks like he's actually
retired from the race. That corner has not been his friend at all, has it? That's what, the third or fourth time we've seen him tonight have an issue at that corner. It's really cost him a lot this evening. Yeah,
very unfortunate there. For Chaden Byron looks like, but it's the same corner as well. Unfortunate for him. He's just making unfortunate mistakes there at turn 8, where he's actually just going through, obviously through the rise and then the downhill braking. Obviously, he just gets caught out quite a fair bit, especially in that first race, and then even at the beginning of the second race.
Dylan Thomas looking for a move here on Gresh.
Dylan Thomas locking those rear brakes.
Jeez.
Yeah, locking those rears, trying to get a move done on Aiden Grange. Unfortunately for him, cannot get it done, and for Aiden Grange, it's another lapse of keeping the car pointing straight. As we see Josh Harris now make a move at turn 1, gets stopped very nicely
Hallinan
there. Well
almost
done.
Into the back of James as well. So Martin Hallinan was looking to go through and try and get the move done as well. Aaron James finds himself a little out of position, a little off the pace. All of a sudden, he's sandwiched between. Josh Harris is going to start to pull away here. He's got to keep an eye on Martin Hallinan, and here comes Tom Williams behind as well. So again, little battle packs just starting to show up. This is what happens at Long Beach. You go with all of the field being spread out by a second or two, and then all of a sudden, you've got a pack of 3, pack of 4 cars.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's just what it brings. That especially with the close racing that we are seeing here, the drivers going for those late moves, drivers going for ambitious overtakes and just overtakes in corners where you might not see a lot of cars pass in the real world of motorsport, but in the virtual world, anything is possible here. We have Scott Stevens now putting the pressure on Matt Bakir. So a couple of laps ago, he was a few seconds behind Matt Bakir, but now he's put in the fast lap. He's actually coming through and trying to make a potential move on Matt Bakir through turn 1. So we try to see if we can go for an onboard lap with Scott Stevens, the man that's making the big progress so far from last place up into P8 as we are on board with the 51. And there's the move done and dusted from Scott Stevens. Matt Bakir under pressure. Scott Stevens says, thank you very much. I'll take that away from you. And that is up to P7 from last place. Scott Stevens, what a recovery drive this has been from the man. He's been showing some great performance, great consistency. Hasn't got the fastest lap there, but he's very close to a fast lap at 22.815 as his fastest lap compared to the fastest lap we are seeing, which is a 22.6. So he's got pace, he's got consistency, and now the most important thing here, Jared, he's got clean air for the next few laps to try and catch Ronald Long.
Absolutely, and Scott Stevens always fast. Big moment there on the brakes, holds it just.
That was scary. That's a hard mouth.
That was some very, very quick steering correction there, and couldn't have come a moment sooner than that. Scott Stevens, look, he's got a whole lot of pace. Unfortunately, in race one, you always see him feature here, though. He's always in amongst it, and even if he does start further back in the field, you can guarantee that you see him somewhere in the top 10, not too far down the track. We're going to jump ahead here. Adrian Gresh now still fighting off Dylan Thomas. Look, Gresh has got to be careful. He's really not defending that turn one entry as well as you'd probably want him to, and you would think having Curry go through on him before he might start to take a bit of a look at it, because Dylan Thomas has been watching that every single lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were watching Mitch Curry actually get past Aiden Grench and then getting towards when they were getting up towards that next lap, even though he was quite close to the 89, it only just took him a second and a half that he lost through sector one after Dylan Thomas was trying to get past him. So the time loss that Aiden Grench is having in that first sector compared to Mitch Curry, where he's actually gaining on the drivers, is substantial, and Dylan Thomas needs to take advantage of that from that weak sector one that Aiden Grench is having, because even he's got the pace in this sector. We can see sector 3 looks like Aiden and Dylan are very equal terms, but just that first sector just needs to be able to improve, especially on the braking zone, as we have a replay here with Martin Hallinan. Looks like he's had an incident here at turn 6. Deep
just
on the brakes there. Big lock up there. Does he get a flick spin done? No, just plucks it into reverse and goes on his way. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a twisted key racing incident there for Martin Hallinan. Just easy to do, lock the brakes. But I think that's another position gained there by Scott Stevens. No, he's actually dropped down position. So he's actually dropped down to P9.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened there.
So he's lost 2 positions from the last time we saw Scott Stevens. So something must have happened, maybe a lockup potentially, or a mistake somewhere to lose 2 positions. So very strange there from Scott Stevens of what happened there.
Yeah, no idea. We didn't catch anything in the telemetry, so hopefully nothing major, and he can get in there. Scott Stevens actually in the chat with us right now, had a spin on that lap, so yeah, that'll explain it. He'll have to fight his way back through again, and he's going to have to do it with attention from Tom Williams, who's only a couple of tenths behind, and certainly no slouch himself either, taking advantage of what little aero these cars do provide down the main straight, and closing that gap up just a little further. We'll jump ahead though. Dylan Thomas continues to pressure Adrian Gresh, and I don't know how long Gresh is going to be able to keep this up. It's a real talent to drive under this pressure for so long. But Dylan Thomas has been threatening again and again and again. And at this point, if you're Dylan Thomas, you've got to start thinking about whether this is holding you up and whether you should consider the pit stop. We're so close to that pit window being pretty viable. We're coming up very quickly on halfway through this race. I am surprised we haven't seen more pit stops happen already. So far, Greg Patrick has been in. We've got Josh Harris, Nathan Bowman, Jared Williams have all been in. Jimmy Peacock as well. Luke Speck's had a couple of visits, unfortunately. So not many of the drivers have actually made those stops just yet, but something to keep an eye on as Josh Harris continues to make his way back up through the field.
Yeah, Josh Harris has actually made a pit stop as well, so he's definitely got some fresher rubber. That's why he's closing up on this battle pack here. So he's going to wait for the other drivers to make their pit stops, and then all it takes is a minute 22, 23 to try and get himself back up towards the lead pack, which is the top, which is looking like to be at the top 3 settled in this first stint before the pit stops. But it looks like Aiden Grench is coming under the big pressure coming from, a lot of pressure from Aiden Grench to Dylan Thomas right down in 4th place. So potentially Dylan needs to actually make that move before the first pit stop, or even just maybe thinking about maybe a couple of laps of an undercut. But we just need to be on the track map. If I look onto my telemetry with the track map, there's not much room to try a potential undercut, because it could actually cost him some time if you do make the undercut not work for you. There's a huge potential that it could ruin your race. So I think what he's actually waiting for Grench to come into the pit lane and then potentially follow it.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. I'm just I'm keeping an eye on the weather, the time of day here. We're 22 laps in of 48. I actually think we're going to be finishing in the dark at this stage. We saw a beautiful finish in the very, very early evening in the gold split. I suspect we actually might find ourselves finishing a bit later in this race. It's going to be interesting to see what this track is like under lights. And that is to say, Long Beach doesn't actually have any track lighting, if memory serves. So these guys will be relying on headlights. This could get really, really interesting in the second half of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be cool to see these cars run at nighttime here at Long Beach and in complete darkness. But I don't think it'll get too dark. I think it just might be enough light just to...
We've got a long way to go yet, though, Nick. We're only at the halfway mark. We've got another half hour to run. This is getting pretty close to when we saw the gold split. As big moment for Scott Stevens, gets sideways out of the corner. This is an opportunity for Tom Williams to close that gap back up again. We saw the lights come on from the gold drivers not too far after this, I reckon. So it's going to be pushing it for daylight.
Oh wow, that is very, very interesting. That's definitely for sure there. But Scott Stevens, after making a very strong progress, it looks like he's actually being hampered a little bit by the tyre wear, and that's why Tom Williams is able to close up on the 51 in succession. So just struggling a little bit potentially on that tyre wear, maybe just a bit pushing too much to come up through the field, and that's what happens starting from the back as we start to see Thomas makes the move there on Aiden Grench. Can Aiden Grench challenge to take back P3? No, it doesn't. It's single file through here. And that is Dylan Thomas up into P3, finally gets past Aiden Grench there for P3 in this race, and that is the moment that he needed. Now he can start to stretch those legs and potentially start to try to hold on to P3, because that is a critical move there at turn 1. He found the weakness of Aiden, which was turn 1 braking, and he capitalized, and that's Dylan Thomas up into 3rd place.
Worth calling out the couple behind them there. Josh Harris back there is not actually part of this pack. He's all the way back in 16th right now. So he's lapping around with these guys, but not actually in amongst it. Be interesting to see how that actually goes if he has made that pit stop on lap 17 as the one stop he's trying to make, and he did spend pretty much bang on a minute in the pit lane, which is plenty to take on some fuel and tyres. He's going to try and make it all the way to the end here. That's 30 odd laps on a single set of tyres. That's a bit of an ask, but he's going to try it out, see if the strategy works out for him, and if he does, honestly, it'll be a masterstroke. But it's going to take a few things going right ahead of him in order for him to get up from 16th to be battling up in the top few here. Harrod sets a new fastest lap, 1:22.39 for him. That is silly quick.
That's very, very competitive lap times there. That's very similar to what we saw in the qualifying as well. But I think we saw a very low 22 flat in the qualifying stages as well. So very close to what we're seeing represented in qualifying lap times. But I think what Josh is actually looking for is, I think he's just trying to collect. He's thinking a way. You're just kind of collecting some sort of data, because yes, he's coming to the pit lane pretty early, but he's seeing these drivers to stay out for 24 laps in this race. So we're about to cross halfway right now, as Hayden Cupid does lead the way with 10.4 seconds ahead of Mitch Curry. So a half race distance. If these drivers get about to lap 30 when it comes to the tyre preservation, he might be sitting in a comfortable spot there, but the only problem he's going to have compared to the rest is he's going to have some really bad tyres next to his name, and instead of charging through, he's going to be fighting to keep that car in one piece towards the end of the race.
Joys of a delayed broadcast, of course. We have a little bit of intel that tells us that first pit stop was actually due to an incident, and unfortunately not his planned pit stop. So it does mean that he's going to have to make another stop. Now, what's happened here with Tom Williams? He's pulled it right up. Martin Hallinan very lucky not to get collected there. Nathan Bowman
Bowman looks like he's been involved in that as well.
I think he might have actually started that off. Yeah, let's go back and take another look at that one, because I think he might have been what started all of this off. So Nathan Bowman comes down into turn 1, gets very, very deep, has to pull it up and flick it around. You've got one of the Everything Simulated entries sitting there as he's coming out of the pits. Martin Hallinan out of the pits. Big slide there. Too soon on. Oh, that was so close.
Wow.
So close for Hallinan. Very lucky not to get taken out. That was a comedy of errors, honestly.
The Chevrolet, the SP Tool Chevrolet Camaro, I'm not so sure who the driver is in that car, but he avoided 3 major accidents in that, with 3 cars facing the wrong direction or slowing or pretty much parking on the apex. He had to really just slalom through and find his way and find his feet and just try and find some clear track, because my goodness, that could have been a monumental incident. 3 cars involved, and all the cars involved there are a lap down compared to him as well. So very, very narrow.
That might have been Daniel Harrod, actually. Let's just keep an eye. Yeah, Daniel Harrod, the man who managed to avoid all of that. So bravo, because that was about the closest thing I think we've seen this race to a major incident, and it would have been
I would love to see the onboard replay if we could ever see that.
Oh, we can absolutely do that.
That would have been so close. That incident would have been so close there as we go checking that out one more time.
Let's jump to Daniel Harrod. So this is Daniel Harrod. We'll jump on board with him, coming down the main straight at
you gotta remember, 240, he doesn't 250. Know what's going on.
No, this is about the first time he gets a look at it, and you can see up ahead, Nathan Bowman spun. There's Hallinan. Hallinan moves forward, comes around the corner. That was so close. Brilliant reflexes from Harrod.
Wow, that is beautiful car control there by Daniel Harrod, just to get past 3 cars facing the wrong directions and trying to get through the pack. Wow, that is, I take my hat off there for Daniel Harrod. That is brilliant. That is brilliant car control and great driving from him to actually avoid an incident in 3 separate occasions there.
Yeah, that could have been disastrous for all of them. This is the thing about the pit exit here, though, at Long Beach. It is such a tough one because you exit it so late, and when you're pushing hard to try and get every 10th of a second out of your pit strategy, you're pushing super hard on cold tires. You're braking really late, and all of a sudden, you've got to take what is effectively a 90-degree turn at the end of that pit lane. You're not allowed to cut across. I suspect, though I'm not sure, but I suspect Martin Hallinan probably picked up a slowdown or even a drive-through or stop-go for that one, because he did actually cut across the pit lane exit line before the blue line. So, look, very possible that he's going to have to come in and serve a penalty for that one. It's really tough.
Pit stoppers, actually, as we're speaking off now, we're on the start of lap 26. We have some drivers into the pit lane right now. That is Aiden Grinch, Jake Robiart, Dylan Thomas, and Mitch Curry. So the drivers from 2nd through to 6th have made their pit stop. Hayden Cupid has actually stayed out for an extra lap here. Looks like he's going to be able to try and stretch his gap a little bit. He did have 10.6 seconds over Mitch Curry on that previous lap there, so he's got a healthy gap to come in whenever he wants over the next few laps, but it's just going to be careful of that undercut of threat. So whether it's in the hands of Hayden Cupid to extend his stint, or respond to that and just don't take any risk and just try and run what everyone else is doing, but on the next lap. But as they come out of the pit lane, Mitch Curry falls in line in 7th place. Looks like he's come through. Dylan Thomas falls in at 8th place, 3.5 between him
Cupid's just come into the pits. So, yeah, Mitch Curry just coming out, Hayden Cupid just going into the pits.
Yeah.
He's still going to end up a long way ahead of Curry, you'd have to think. Let's take a look. This is Mitch Curry. He's around the back half of the track right now.
Yeah, Cupid's coming right now. He's responded.
Cupid's in the box.
Even though he's got a huge gap, he had a huge gap over Mitch Curry. I think that's just the smartest way to go. Don't take any risk, because there's a potential that you could just outbrake yourself, lock a brake, run too deep in a corner, hit a barrier. Looks like, but it's been running a very clean race, you could say, for Hayden Cupid. It's just been incident-free so far.
Keep an eye on it, though. Cupid's time. He's just finished in his box now, 25 seconds. Cupid will be out. Look, his box must be far down the pit lane. He'll be out in about the next probably 5 or 10 seconds. So Curry won't be far behind at all. There you go. Hayden Cupid's just exited now. So that gap to Hayden Cupid down to only about 6 seconds, 7 seconds after that stop. And Curry is on warm tyres. So he's going to try and make the most of this here and close that down further. Hayden Cupid retains the effective lead though. Matt Bakir and Scott Stevens yet to make their pit stop, so they're going to have to think about that pretty soon. Only 18 seconds gap from Stevens to Cupid, so there is absolutely no way that Bakir and Stevens are staying at the top end of this pack post their stop. Just not going to happen.
No, and the gap has dropped down significantly there, 3.5 now, 4 seconds now between Cupid and Mitch Curry. So I wonder if the difference could be potentially on the field numbers, or could be, it has to be something
looking
like
at
that.
Looking at the pit time, Cupid did spend an extra couple of seconds taking fuel, which is interesting considering that he was a bit later coming in, a lap later than Mitch Curry. Either Mitch Curry's running his fuel load very, very light here, or Hayden Cupid's miscalculated and spent a couple more seconds than he needed to by taking on too much fuel. Hard to say which it's going to be. Matt Bakir into the pits now, so these guys will come past. There's Mitch Curry. You can see him in the background starting to reel in Hayden Cupid. Scott Stevens still further up the road, 18.5 seconds. It's not going to be anywhere near enough though.
No, absolutely not. And you know, as we saw with Mitch Curry in that first race, he knows how to heat those tyres up. He knows how to warm those tyres up really quickly. So he's going to be the man to watch. He's going to be putting a lot of pressure on Hayden Cupid, and this is going to be the first time we get to see Hayden Cupid and Mitch Curry have a nice little battle for the lead of the race here in the feature race here at MC Motorsports, the first season of the Supercar Championship here presented by MC Motorsport. It's going to be great to see what Mitch can do, because he knows how to light his tyres up. He knows how to get heat in those tyres a lot quicker than anybody else that we've seen so far at Long Beach. And it's all going to be a matter of due time of where he can actually throw in the potential of making the move. And he did it on the last lap as well. We saw the pace that he had in race 1, and now he's demonstrated that in the pace in this stint, 21.7 as the fastest lap of the race so far. That is incredible pace there by Mitch Curry, and you can see he's not mucking around. He wants to avenge what was a potential victory lost in race 1, and wants to try and back it up and try and get victory here in this feature race.
Absolutely. Something you don't see too often. Alpine Pro racing cars are all lined up here. Adrian Gresh out in front of Ron Long and Matt Bakir. Bakir just coming out of the pits ahead of Josh Harris. So 3 Valvoline cars right in a line for Josh Harris to try and pick off here. Mitch Curry in the chat just saying the car was so good on full fuel and new tyres. Yeah, look, they respond massively to these new tyres. We said this earlier in the coverage. Lap 1 on new tyres, just about the best feeling in a Gen 3 supercar, and it only goes downhill from there.
Yeah, and then also Hayden Cupid has responded on that next lap on his first fly lap, 21.898. Not the fastest, but compared to Mitch Curry's last lap at 22.383, it's still keeping it even Stevens between the two of them. So just probably overheating those tyres a little bit on that previous lap there by Mitch Curry, but it's just going to be all about consistency now. 3.7 the gap between Cupid and Curry, while the driver behind in Dylan Thomas running in place of Fishy Motorsports, an extra 4.6 behind Mitch Curry. So still not over yet. There's not a lot of close battling we see. The only close battle we've got are the two teammates here in the Alpine Pro Racing, in both Ronald Long and Aidan Grench. And Aidan Grench is down the order as well here, so, and he's got Matt Bakir as well. So the 3 Alpine Pro Racing Chevrolet Camaros, 7th, 8th and 9th, when one of the drivers was running inside the podium positionings on that first stint. So something dramatic has happened with this team in the pit stop.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's happening with Gresh. He just hasn't managed to find the pace here again. Bakir's on fresh tyres. But Gresh, not too far off either. These guys in order: Ronald Long pitted on lap 26, Gresh on 25, Bakir on 27. So they're all on reasonably similar setups at the moment. You'd have to think they're running a pretty similar car setup as well. But Gresh just seems to be having a bit of a harder time with this. It's not often, with no disrespect to Ron Long, of course, it's not often that we see Gresh struggling to keep up with him. And it just doesn't seem to be gelling for Gresh right now. Maybe he has taken on a bit more fuel than he should have. His last pit time 38.5 seconds, so that's certainly not a fuel question. That is repairs being done to that car, I suspect. But maybe still struggling with a bit of damage that they haven't been able to fix in the pit lane.
He was battling quite hard when he was trying to fend off from Dylan Thomas and also putting the pressure on Mitch Curry. He actually started to scrape a few walls and clip the barriers, trying to make that progression from either defending or offending or defending. He's just really struggled, so potentially there's a bit of a wait time in that pit lane that definitely cost him, but he's actually sandwiched between his two teammates. Obviously, probably him being one of the lead drivers in this silver split here at Long Beach is now sandwiched between his two teammates. So I wonder what's going to be happening here at the end of the race, whether this impacts any championship order that these guys have. But it is early stages so far in this championship. We're only 3 rounds in to, I believe, it's a 10-round championship here that we have at MC Motorsports for the inaugural Supercars championship we have here on display on iRacing. And it's great to see some action here. We saw some fantastic racing in the gold split, and now it's time for the silver split in their feature race, lap 31 of 48. We run through our top 10. It is Hayden Cupid still leading the way, 3.4 seconds now, so the gap is still staying the same between 3.4 to 3.8 ahead of Mitch Curry. And then we have Dylan Thomas, Jake Robillard, the two Ford Mustangs, 3rd and 4th place. And then in 5th place we have Greg Patrick, the Full Send Motorsports, trying to work his way up through the field there in 5th. Scott Stevens, Ronald Long, Adrian Brench, Matt Bakir and Josh Harris rounding up our top 10. So some honorable mentions there. Greg Patrick, after what was some great racing with Luke Speck, is running very nicely inside the top 5, and Scott Stevens, putting on some consistency that we saw, is now running up nicely in P6, and he's closing up a little bit on Greg Patrick's there. He's actually taken a bit of time away on that last lap. It's a 21.843. It's his fastest lap versus a 1 minute 23.756. So you could have to say a mistake on Greg Patrick's end, but he's got the pace, and we saw that in that first stint, Jared, that Scott Stevens is here to play, and he's here to make moves.
Absolutely is. He's got a lot of work to do though to catch up, and certainly that front pack very well spread out. So even if Stevens does catch up to Patrick, he's then got to overcome another 20-30 seconds to find himself further up the field. Aaron James just closing up a little here on Josh Harris, and finding some extra pace. So I was watching these guys coming through. We spoke about the second to last corner before he hit that back straight, and we'll watch it again on this lap. You see Josh Harris take a super wide line on the exit of the turn, with Aaron James taking a very, very shallow line, and it doesn't seem to make a huge amount of difference in their pace through the corner. It's a really interesting one. So we're watching the corner just after this, make their way through here, both on a very, very similar line on entry to the corner. But have a look at the difference, and they're going to prove me wrong here, I'm sure, and do it the same way. But you have a look at the difference. Now, there you go. Look at James. Really, really narrow line there, and it doesn't seem to add much. I'm not sure why these drivers are taking a different approach here. For those of you in the chat, if you can give me some insight onto that one, I'd be really interested to hear why on earth you'd take either of those lines, inside or outside. Why you'd take and which one, and what the difference actually is there, because in my experience around this track, admittedly limited, I actually don't think that there's a great deal of benefit in going so tight on the exit of that corner.
Yeah, and I think for the case of Josh Harris, who was one of the early drivers that came into the pit lane, obviously he's running on some very worn tyres, just over 10 laps worn tyres. It looks like he's running that wider line just to kind of preserve his size, just open up the steering wheel, so you can see him running very, very wide, and just able to extend the track, the racing line that he could, just to try and save some extra tyre life, whilst the other driver in Aaron James taking a bit of a tighter line, probably with fresher compounds, with fresher racing hard tyres, just able to get on the power a lot sooner. But if you can get the power sooner compared to Josh Harris, who has to take a bit of a different approach, that's why he's gaining so much time, I feel, in
Scott
going
Stevens
towards
makes
turn
the move
7
on
and 8.
Patrick. Makes it look easy in the end. Scott Stevens certainly plenty of pace. He's past Patrick now, and we'll be looking to reel in the huge gap to Jake Robyard. It's just a little bit of 18 seconds or so in the next 14 laps. Greg Patrick takes it. Oh, very lucky to avoid Scott Stevens there on that line. He was pushing hard to try and keep on the back of Stevens, but in the end it's cost him a little as Stevens makes his way down the main straight and starts to pull away in front. Ronald Long's had a bit of an issue, it seems, and he's dropped to the back and off the back of his teammates there, so you'll see him in P9 a couple of seconds back now. I'm just having a look here at the pit laps. Greg Patrick went in on lap 14, Scott Stevens on lap 28. You can see the difference in the tyres in how they're actually coping right now. Scott Stevens just very, very collected, and Greg Patrick probably not going to find the same level of pace in the next 14 odd laps. It does make me wonder if he can even make it to the end without another stop.
It looks like Josh Harris has actually come back into the pit lane, so it looks like he's making his second stop.
That'll be his actual stop, I suspect, given his earlier one was due to that damage. So out he comes, and that's going to pretty effectively end his top 10 hopes for tonight.
Now, we might be seeing the same here with Greg Patrick as well. So if you said he pitted on lap 14, there's a potential.
That's very early.
Yeah, if he's pitted on lap 14, those tyres would be pretty much running towards being on the rim and full explosion. Obviously putting so much pressure on these compounds. So probably expect to see him in the pit lane very soon, as we have heavy damage on Ronald Long. So one of the drivers that was actually running very well in their orders inside the top 10. Looks like huge damage with the tyre barrier. Looks like he's done that early on in the stint as well. Is he going to come into the pit lane to fix it up? Yes, he is.
You'd have to think so. Absolutely.
Very unfortunate. I think he was running as high as P8. He was actually the lead driver compared to his teammates in Aiden Grench and Matt Bekir. So that's a bit of a shame there for Ronald Long to lose so much time there. But it is Aiden Grench ahead of Matt Bekir, leading that Alpine Pro Racing. What could have been for Aiden Grench to hold on to P3?
Would have been some great team points for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So some great consistency for those two. Looks like Bekir is putting a little bit of pressure on his probably say faster teammate, but in this race, I'm not so sure how they go in the long season, who is the #1 driver in that team.
Maybe time for a bit of bump drafting, get some extra pace out of it. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
We're starting to get into the last embers of daylight here. It's getting dark. These drivers will be thinking about headlights very soon. No track lighting here at Long Beach, so might just add another element. Look, I might have been a little pessimistic about the amount of light we'd have left here. It is, after all, winter in California, but thankfully we seem to have held up all right here. Probably another 12 laps to go here, and yeah, you'd have to think just enough light to finish it out. It is a gorgeous sunset here at Long Beach, and doesn't hurt at all for us watching at home. But the drivers are going to find this increasingly difficult to see their brake markers, to see the condition of the track ahead. May just add a last-minute change of conditions and a final element for them to consider as they try and bring it home. Hayden Cupid out in front, looking pretty comfortable, you'd have to say. 5-second lead over Mitch Curry and increasing. He is in an absolute box seat, and certainly a much better result than race one for him. He'll be pleased with this as a turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. He's crossed the line at 1 minute 23.237 versus Mitch Curry's about to cross the line right now. 1 minute 22.914. So gaining a little bit of side. The time between these two fluctuates between just a few tenths here and there. And then all of a sudden, with Hayden Cupid, with that extra lap of fresh rubber, is able just to put the power down and actually get a little bit more traction in some of the corners, that he just says, you know what, just throw in a bit of a faster lap than you. And that's where we see some great racing between these two. And they're just playing mind games at the moment. There's a bit of a chess game between Hayden Cupid and Mitch Curry to see who is the first to bluff. As we see one of the Alpine Pro Racing
believe that
facing the
might have
wrong
been
direction.
Ronald Long, just sitting sideways in the corner there. So back to the pits for him, I am sure. Looks like he may have come together with Nathan Bowman, actually. So some of your back markers still battling it hard for the last of the positions. Nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, not playing out so nicely for either of those guys at the moment. Mitch Curry, a little further back. Can't quite see Hayden Cupid yet, except perhaps on the main straight. So he's just going to have to keep pushing along and trying to close down that gap to the driver ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of seeing, yeah, so you can just see there a little bit, just interesting on the timing, on the telemetry there, where he was actually losing a bit of time in that last sector. I can't keep pointing it out between Mitch Curry and that different style of racing, especially when it comes to this first sector. We'll keep an eye on that timing delta, where he's actually able to gain time here through sector 1 compared to Hayden Cupid. Looks like he's able to take a little bit more of a better approach there as he goes takes a very nice line through the fountain. Then coming up towards turns 4 and 5. 5.6, so he's just gained a little bit of time on Hayden Cupid, but I feel like he may have just overworked, probably overworked those tyres in that early stint, and he's just losing a little, and he's just actually starting to lose a bit of time to Hayden Cupid. But it's still anyone's game here. All it just takes is a small mistake here, Jared, and one of these two drivers could be a winner out of it, or it could be a loser out of it. It could be Hayden Cupid taking the victory, it could be Mitch Curry taking the victory. So not long to go here. We've just got under 10 laps. We've got about 10 laps to go till the end of this race, and strap yourselves in, because this is where the chess begins. This is where the chess becomes a big game now to finish the deal.
Absolutely, it does. These guys will have all done the calculations along the way with their pit crews. They will have been running as light as they possibly can in terms of fuel load, and they're going to have to start thinking about whether they need to do a little bit of fuel saving to make it to the end, whether they've given themselves plenty of fuel to get there, but have left themselves with a little more weight than the driver ahead. I think at this stage, if I'm Mitch Curry, 9 laps out from the end, it's a real question as to whether... Oh, big moment. Mitch Curry's pushed it too hard.
Oh!
I think he's knocked the spoiler off. That's going to cause huge issues for him. That's cost him a position. Dylan Thomas out in front. Now damage on that car. That is going to have a significant impact on his pace as well. So, look, the nicest thing I can say about Mitch Curry's car right now is it does look all right without a spoiler on it. But it's not going to help him for the last 10 laps of this race. And now he runs off into the stop there. And unfortunately, that could be Mitch Curry's race done.
That looks to be an early retire. That looks to be a late race retirement for Mitch Curry, who was putting a little bit of pressure on Hayden Cupid at the end of that first pit window. Yeah, it looks like, there we go, it's a DNF. That's the car retired, and Mitch Curry is out of this race, sitting very pretty in P2 and looking to settle for P2 overall, which actually could have led to an overall round victory for Mitch Curry. But that is such a hard way to lose out on that damage on the rear wing and then into the tyre barrier. It's just to retire the car. That is a hard way to lose out in this silver split and potentially get yourself back into the gold lobby as well.
Getting the intel coming through, of course, from the chat. Mitch Curry saying that it was right about as he spun there that he heard the family in need of some attention at home, let's say, and so unfortunately has made the decision to retire there to go and deal with real world issues. This is the thing about sim racing. It's a lot easier to get out of the cockpit here than it is of a real race car, and so you don't really have an excuse of sorry honey, I was out on track. Mitch Curry, yeah, look, everyone gets a drop round, right? This might just have to be yours.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame though, because he's definitely one of the fastest drivers so far. The only man to set a 21.704 is the fastest lap, so that'll be a little bit of pride there, a little bit of take it and leave it, setting the fastest lap there, unless some of the drivers like Josh Harris, who actually came into the pit lane to get on some fresh rubber, so potentially he might be having a go for a fastest lap himself as he starts to warm those tyres up very nicely there. But he looks like to be caught in a bit of traffic there between himself and Thomas. So Dylan Thomas obviously running now in position 2 compared to Josh Harris, who is a lap down, unfortunately, on this battle
Not a bad
pack
spot
here.
for him to be, though, right? Tack on the back of Dylan Thomas, and yeah, just ride around. I mean, Thomas has obviously got the pace, so Josh Harris in 12th right now. Wouldn't be a bad idea for him to just kind of tack onto the back, enjoy the slipstream, and ride to the end. I think with the gaps that we've seen in the field here, you know, Simon Caplet is still 7.5 seconds ahead from him. Even closing the gap to 11th here is going to be really, really hard for Harris. This endurance, mini endurance distance, but it is a long race, 150 k's, particularly around a track like Long Beach. You're not going to make up that kind of distance very easily at all. Here come the headlights. So race control have ordered lights on for the drivers, and we are going to finish this one out, getting very, very close to dark here. 7-8 laps to go, and still a fair bit of driving to do, but 10 minutes or so left in this race, and really not a whole lot of these drivers likely to change their position, again barring any incidents. It's really survival mode at this stage, and just keeping consistent lap times and keeping on track is going to be all it takes to finish where you are. About the only driver looking like a possibility of picking up an extra spot here is Matt Bakir, but even that is going to be a stretch, and as I've said that, he's actually dropped a long way back from Adrian Gresh, so it's going to be a big ask for anyone to change their position at this stage. We might be seeing the finishing order here, but it's all going to come down to fuel. Do they have enough to get to the end? Is someone going to have to make a splash and dash, and is that going to upset the order altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's just about waiting, biding the time, just running these laps, just try and be as consistent as you can. You just don't want to miss a breaking point. As it starts to get dark, the track conditions change dramatically. The tyres are very, very warm. So there's a huge potential for drivers to be making a lot of errors, and the braking zones become very different as well. Obviously, you could be referencing with shadows, you could be referencing with buildings. So anything that changes from day to night or to twilights has a big effect on the driver mentality, especially trying to keep the car consistent lap on lap, as these drivers are just navigating their way around. Josh Harris is tagging along the back of Dylan Thomas, losing a bit of time to the forward driver, obviously not in the battle for the position 2, but still learning a lot from what he is actually doing ahead of him and actually keeping pace. So he's obviously using, like you could say in a way, he's kind of using Dylan Thomas as a bit of as a guinea pig on the racing lines and on the braking zones that he could try and match as well, because if he's able to match that, he could potentially start to slowly close up on Simon Caplet in 11th place. It's 5 seconds between the two of them.
It's coming down.
Yeah, if Dylan Thomas is fast, that he's been showing some good pace, have Josh Harris involved and catching in that slipstream and following the racing line. Oh, sorry, following the racing. Following the racing line, he actually might put himself in contention to take 11th place away from Simon Caplet with only a few laps to go.
Going to have to make a move on for that, though. He is reeling Caplet in, but a long way to go. You see Caplet there off in the distance, the French flag of Caplet Motorsport, and sponsored, of course, by French Car Care right here in Brisbane. Simon Caplet, look, he's probably checking those times and just keeping an eye on how it's coming down. Right now, though, his interest is in Bakir. He's managed to close it up. Bakir's taken an awful line out of the hairpin, and that might be just enough for Caplet to make a pass here before we get to turn 1. He's reeling him in. They're side by side. Caplet around the outside of that turn as we come down to turn 1. Caplet's got the inside line. Late on the brakes. Bit of a lock up there from Bakir. That sent him wide. And Caplet makes the move through to P10. And now Josh Harris has a new target in Matt Bakir, who's actually lost a bit of time getting caught up in that little tangle with Caplet for a moment. So now only 4.3 and dropping between Harris and Bakir.
Yeah, exactly, and the gap is closing, and as we can see there, Dylan Thomas is actually helping Josh Harris close up to these guys, because Dylan Thomas is starting to show some great speed and great pace. He's actually set a 23 flat on that last lap versus the race leader 23.5. So he's actually really able to make a wriggle on. So 23 flat for Dylan Thomas, and then also 22.9 for Josh Harris. So he's working absolute magic here, working with Dylan Thomas to try and close up on these guys. There's a great tactic here by Josh Harris. Can he get himself inside the top 10 with only 5 laps to go till the end of this race? Well, 4 laps for him until the end of this race, as he is a lap down. But can he close up? That'll be very close. That'll be exciting to see. And if he can stay with Dylan Thomas, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's still going to be a big ask though. He's definitely closing in, down to 3 seconds now. But it is only a short distance left in this race, just a few laps to go, and he's going to have to really start reeling them in if he wants to actually make a pass as well. Within 3 seconds now, Bakir's starting to drop off the back of Caplet, so the opportunity for Josh Harris, he'll be seeing those Camaro taillights up ahead and thinking that there may be an opportunity. I think he's actually in a pretty good spot here too. If Dylan Thomas does make the pass, Harris will be trying to sneak through at the same time.
Well, because you've got to remember as well, the blue flags are being waved to those drivers ahead of him, Bakir and Caplet. So probably they don't know that Josh Harris is right behind. So
it's something they're going to have to keep an eye on.
And here's a potential here, unless that's one of a lap driver coming up through there.
That's,
yes, it is.
Actually, not sure whose that is. Believe it or not.
I believe that's one of the lap drivers, because that's actually. Yeah, so he's actually getting away with all the drivers there.
There we go. Martin Lipsky's changed his livery on me. That was a Bumblebee yellow in the first couple of rounds. So if you're out there, Martin Lipsky, do me a favour, stay consistent. It's not so much to us. No, look, these guys have all changed their liveries a little over the first couple of rounds. Of course, everyone jumping into whatever livery they could find in round 1. Because, of course, the Gen3 Supercars, very new to iRacing, didn't have a lot out there, but everyone's starting to find something that they're keen on. The gap to Matt Bakir for Josh Harris now down to 1.8. Oh, big moment for Josh Harris. He's locked the rear.
Oh, he just missed the wall there as well. He just literally kissed the barrier there, and that's his charge done and dusted. That is so unlucky there for Josh Harris, closing up as much as he could. And the back end said, see you later, I can't handle any more. And the car looks like it's come into the pit lane. And
I'm not sure what's happened there.
Looks like he's thrown the towel for retirement there. Just a bit of frustrations, I would say, in the hands of Josh Harris, running in as high up as P2 in that early stint of the race. An unfortunate mistake that brought him into the pit lane. 2 pit stops next to his name, and that's his race done and dusted. There's a big shame for Josh Harris confirming.
Josh Harris confirming in the chat he blew his engine on that downshift. Over revved it and blew the engine. Let's look. We'll take the time to go back and have a look at this, because you want to see if we can catch exactly where that happened. We'll slow it right down here. So downshifting, got to be so careful not to over-rev them, and you'll see the compression lock of those rear wheels. Downshifts here, that's it, locks the rear up, there's the engine.
Yeah, there's the smoke.
And actually, in the end, pretty lucky not to take out like Dylan Thomas ahead of him.
Dylan Thomas, and who's actually fighting for P2, who is actually P2 in this race. So yeah, that is because he was actually keeping up with Dylan Thomas. He was actually right on the rear bumper going into that corner, into that final corner on the previous lap. So if he actually made the move, because he realised that he had better tyres, that would have been very scary, and that would have been an unhappy Dylan Thomas for sure.
No one quite as unhappy, I'm sure, though, as Josh Harris, blowing an engine 46 laps into 48. On a relatively simple downshift.
Feel for the guy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not what you want to see, but that's racing, folks. Anything can happen, and often does. Hayden Cupid right now, 8 seconds over Dylan Thomas, looking pretty comfortable. Just a couple of laps to go, and this will be his race and his points to make up for the disappointment of race 1. Greg Patrick just tacking onto the back there, P9, so you can see that Cupid fair way up the track.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can just see there Greg Patrick did get lapped on that previous lap by Hayden Cupid. And I feel like the next driver that's going to be potentially lapped could be Darren Longan in the 31. But I feel like he's a long way up along the track there. 1 minute 20 seconds ahead. So yeah, he's potentially going to be the last driver for Hayden Cupid to lap in this race. But as the clock is ticking and less than 2 laps to go to conclude the feature race here for the MCV8 Supercars Championship, the Chevrolet Camaro versus the Ford Mustang. Great to see these cars battling it out here, and great to see them in the iRacing world for the first time in 2024. After the announcement was made last year, and to see these cars in real life come to fruition in iRacing, and everyone around the world has been taking these cars to the absolute advantages and taking on the challenge of the Gen 3 V8 Supercar as well. And it's great to see these cars in action. The sound that these cars are making is absolutely incredible. Obviously, we have heard the onboards from some of the drivers, but they just sound glorious in the iRacing world. And they're pretty close to what we actually hear in the real world as well.
They absolutely are, and certainly the feedback we've had from a number of actual supercar drivers is that the driving model is not too far off the real deal, which is,
wow.
You know, it's pretty cool to hear that, because the Gen 2s, I think anyone who's followed iRacing for any length of time knows that they certainly had a pretty good model that got changed then to appease a few people that perhaps didn't have the best idea of how they actually felt. So to see them get it fairly right with the Gen 3s out of the box is certainly a positive overall. We'll see how it goes over the next 12 months or so as they go through a couple of seasons and a couple of balanced performance changes, all that kind of thing. But all in all, you've got to say the introduction to Gen3 Supercars has been an absolute breath of fresh air, and certainly has revitalised a lot of interest in iRacing. Overall, there's been a massive lift in the number of drivers now starting to jump into it just in the past 6 months or so, which is, good to see.
Absolutely, and here we are, the final lap here coming down the backstretch for the last time. Hayden Cupid, absolute class, got the perfect jump on the start of the race, did not look back whatsoever, looking to pass his teammate for the last time. He might let him go through, but he might actually let him finish this last lap, because he's got Greg Patrick behind him, doesn't want to make any moves on his teammates, so he's done the right thing. But nonetheless, Hayden Cupid takes out the feature race here for round 3 of the MCV8 Championship for Season 1. Victory goes to Hayden Cupid for Sideways Esports. Big congratulations for the Ford Mustang driver, with Dylan Thomas rounding up in position 2 and Jake Robillard, the Quiet Assassin, in 3rd place, making an all-Ford podium here at Long Beach for the feature race. So that is going to be a huge relief for the Ford branding, for the Ford manufacturer here at Long Beach, to see 3 of their cars stepping on that podium for the first time in the MC Motorsport's V8 Championship. Scott Stevens, a brilliant drive there. What a drive that has been, from last to 4th place. What a great effort that was. Aaron Grench seals off in 5th place at the moment there, so he's coming across the line and is about to finish up his last, and he's got Aaron James right behind as well, so he has been the man on the charge as well. Can't get that position on Aiden Grench. Got close, but not close enough. It is Aiden Grench ahead of Aaron James in 6th place. Martin Hallen, Darren Logan, and Greg Patrick rounds up the last remaining drivers on the lead lap here. But wow, what a race this has been. Incredible
Absolutely.
Racing all around, from all of the drivers, and great respect. Unfortunate DNFs there, some close calls, but overall, Long Beach delivered, and what a race it's been here to conclude round 3.
Very much so. We'll keep with the images of Hayden Cupid. I'm sure we're about to see him come around and just use up the rest of those tyres, I'm sure, as we go to the results from race number 2 here tonight, our feature race at Long Beach. And Hayden Cupid, just an absolutely masterful performance for him as well. Dylan Thomas, 10 seconds behind, just a huge difference in pace overall tonight. Hayden Cupid didn't even get touched tonight. He was quite comfortable out in front, and just very, very consistent, very clean racing. And that's all it took to get around Long Beach for the win. Jake Robillard picking up 3rd. Scott Stevens, as you said, a masterful drive to get all the way back up to 4th. and end up ahead of Adrian Gresh, Aaron James, Martin Hallinan and Darren Lofton, Greg Patrick, Simon Caplet, Matt Bakir and Martin Lipsky behind them. Then Jared Williams, Josh Harris back in 14th after blowing that engine. Still manages to pick up some points there. Nathan Bowman, Mitch Curry, Ronald Bong and Chayton Byron rounding out the 18. An unlucky night for some of our drivers, for sure, Nick, but all in all, Long Beach are an absolutely stunning venue every time and never fails to bring us some great racing.
Absolutely. Obviously a track that is very hard for overtaking, made it look easy by the MC Motorsport drivers here in its inauguration of the MCV8 Championship here, the Silver Split. Definitely delivering some great racing amongst the top field, amongst the top competitors. 8 drivers on the lead lap, so that just shows some dominance there by Hayden Cooper, but as well unfortunate mistakes from the drivers down the order there. We can name some names that we got: Matt Bakir, Josh Harris as well, double pits off a blown engine, Mitch Curry facing the wrong direction, breaking his spoiler and then ploughing it into the tyre barriers. We have to think about Luke Speck as well, early in that stint as well, getting caught up with Greg Elliott as well. Greg Patrick, apologies there, getting caught up in that incident battle that those two were having. So a lot of big names not finishing this race, but as well, it is, if you want to finish, first you have to finish. And for Hayden Cooper, lights check flag for the 999, and Sideways Esports gets the victory and the full 100 points next to his name.
Absolutely, a fantastic night of racing. Nick Pitasso, it's been fantastic having you back in the commentary booth with me, my friend. I'm looking forward to doing it again soon. We'll have to line it up. I'm sure we can make it happen. Welcome back to the broadcast team.
Thank you so much. I have definitely been missing out on the iRacing world of MC Motorsport. I had a ball in the first season of the GT3 Championship. Had so much fun with you. Obviously, I have to thank yourself for getting me in to do the Silver Split as well. Hopefully, I'll be around for future events here at MC Motorsport. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how this championship unfolds over the weeks go by. So hopefully try to get myself back in the commentary booth, whether it is in gold or silver. Either way, I'll be more than happy to call out what I'm seeing here, the brilliant pictures and the brilliant technology that we're seeing in iRacing, to see the Chevrolet Camaro and the Ford Mustang, the Gen 3 Supercars on our screens here, and in all of its colors, and everyone's putting in the effort to make some brilliant liveries and some stunning liveries. It's great to see what our drivers can do on and off the track with these cars, and I'm looking forward to I'm really looking forward to the next event. I don't know when that will be, but hopefully soon enough.
You and I will chat, absolutely. Nick Pitasso, thank you again for joining the Simple Racing broadcast team for tonight's event. On behalf of everyone here, we'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. We'll leave you with some images of our drivers just having a bit of fun at the end of the race. Always a good way to finish it off. Until next time, though, please do make sure you are subscribed. Hit that bell button down below so you don't miss any of the action here from the MC Motorsport series. Plenty more racing ahead of us in the weeks to come. Until then, though, please do look after yourselves, keep each other safe, and we will see you again next week for round 4 of the MC Motorsport MCV8 series. Until we're back on your screens again, it's goodbye for now.